Chapter 143. Leng Shiqi saw that he was about to be stopped by the 4 spirit guards, and Bao Pingyi was running in the opposite direction. His speed was not slow and he had a movement technique, so he felt a bit anxious. It has to be said that there were more than 100 guards from the Bao mansion in the direction Bao Pingyi was running. Bao Pingyi and the 4 spirit guards were faster, so they were one step ahead. If Bao Pingyi met up with the guards, he would have no chance at all. I have to kill him before the guards arrive. However, at this moment, the swords of the 4 spirit guards fell. For steady sword moves were thrust out, carrying with them a scorching aura. The spiritual power in Leng Shiqi's body circulated rapidly, and a group of cold air suddenly gushed out. Then the cold air spread out and instantly engulfed the 4 spiritual guards. In the blink of an eye, their bodies were covered with a thin layer of ice crystals. A spirit cultivator? The 4 spirit guards were secretly shocked. Although this layer of ice was not very strong and they only needed 2 or 3 breaths to break out, they realized that their opponent was not simple. Leng Shiqi took this opportunity to rush out. He stepped on the black fog, and his body floated in the wind. He looked slow, but he was actually as fast as the wind as he caught up to Bao Pingyi. Bao Pingyi felt the movement behind him. He turned around and saw Leng Shiqi chasing after him with a saber in his hand. Moreover, the distance between them was getting closer and closer. Bao Pingyi was shocked and his face turned ashen. There was a flash of light in his eyes. Instead of running away and being caught, it was better to fight head-on. As long as he could delay until the 4 spirit guards and the other guards arrived, he would be safe. He might even be able to kill this assassin. At this moment, Bao Pingyi suddenly turned around, and his powerful aura of the 8th layer of the spirit transformation realm surged. He crossed his blades and the blades shined brightly. Leng Shiqi saw that Bao Pingyi was attacking instead of running, and was very happy. He thought, "There is no door to hell, yet you still dare to charge in." Leng Shiqi raised his saber to meet the attack. When the 2 of them got closer, Leng Shiqi was just about to use his half-moon swift slash. However, Bao Pingyi unexpectedly let go of the saber in his right hand. The next moment, Bao Pingyi pulled out a short knife from somewhere and pointed it at Leng Shiqi's vital point from an extremely strange angle. The 3rd saber. In fact, many people had always had a question. That was, Bao Pingyi was clearly best at dual blades, but the faction he had single-handedly created was called the 3 Blades Guild? Then why wasn't it called the Twin Sabers Association? At this moment, Leng Shiqi finally understood. Bao Pingyi had been hiding his 3rd weapon all this time. Not only was the blade fast, but the angle was also ruthless. The entire blade also flashed with a faint green light. Obviously, it had been dipped in poison. Leng Shiqi used the floating spirit steps to dodge. At the same time, he used the curved blade to block and slightly avoided the tricky attack. Bao Pingyi turned his body and slashed with the long and short sabers in his hands. At the same time, the other long saber was clamped by his neck. He twisted his head, and the last long saber also came stabbing over. He was actually using 3 sabers with 2 hands. It was amazing. Moreover, his attack rhythm was very fast. His wrist, elbow, shoulder. Even every joint in his body could be used to operate the 3rd saber. Leng Shiqi had never fought with such an opponent before. He did not have any similar battle experience. Furthermore, Bao Pingyi's cultivation was far higher than his. He was actually at a disadvantage. Leng Shiqi also admitted that he had underestimated Bao Pingyi. The outside world was different from the Blood Fog Island. On the Blood Fog Island, no one had much time to study spirit techniques, so he could do whatever he wanted with his perfect spirit techniques. But in this great world, a spirit cultivator like Bao Pingyi who had lived for decades did not have much hope of breaking through to the 4th realm of the Sky Realm. He had a lot of time to hone his spirit techniques. His spirit energy foundation might not be as pure as Leng Shiqi's, but his decades of battle experience was far from what Leng Shiqi could compare to. What was worse was that at this time, the 4 spirit guards also broke out of the ice and ran over. Leng Shiqi knew that he could not delay any longer. In the face of Bao Pingyi's rain-like attacks, Leng Shiqi opened his mouth and let out a roar that resounded through the night sky. This sudden roar caused Bao Pingyi's ears to buzz, and his attacks instantly slowed down. Leng Shiqi hurriedly retreated a few steps. His left palm shone with a faint starlight. Then, with a push of his palm, a turbulent cold air sprayed towards Bao Pengyi. The dense cold air froze Bao Pengyi in the blink of an eye, as well as the 4 spirit guards who had just rushed over behind him. Spirit attack path of ice. The ice that sealed Bao Pengyi quickly cracked. Leng Shiqi knew that he could not trap him for long. His left hand reached to his waist and pulled out another scimitar. Then Leng Shiqi's spirit energy flowed rapidly, crazily pouring into the 2 scimitars. A few purple veins appeared on the blade, and 2 extremely bright saber lights shone. In the next moment, 2 stunning purple crescent blade lights whizzed out from the blade, splitting the sky in a forked shape and swallowing Bao Pengyi. Bao Pengyi was aghast and could only use his weapon to block in front of him. Only a few caw-caw sounds were heard. The 2 purple blade lights instantly shattered Bao Pengyi's weapon and landed on his golden silk soft armor. The soft armor was made of an unknown material. It was not only hard but also flexible. It blocked the blade lights, causing Bao Pengyi's body to fly backwards. But after a few breaths, the golden silk soft armor finally broke. Bao Pengyi's mouth was wide open in horror. He had just seen the 4 spirit guards frozen, and knew that the person in front of him was also a spirit master. But he never thought that Leng Shiqi could almost instantaneously release such a large area of effect spell. He was shocked, he was angry, he was unwilling. He had been careful for decades, but in the end he was still going to die under the assassination of others. The cards he had painstakingly accumulated for decades could not stop the footsteps of the god of death. Just when he thought that he was going to die, for scorching sword chi suddenly appeared and consumed half of the blade light's spirit energy. Immediately, 4 swords appeared in front of Bao Pengyi at the same time to help him block the 2 purple moon blade lights. The blade lights and the swords collided, making a clanging sound and creating a dazzling spark. In the end, the blade lights were exhausted, but the 4 swords were also cut open. The 4 spirit guards had arrived at the most critical moment. Bao Pengyi had 1 foot in the door of death, but he was pulled back. He had escaped death, and was gasping for breath. The 4 spirit guards protected Bao Pengyi behind them, and one by one, they glared at Leng Shiqi. Tonight's battle could be said to be extremely aggrieved because so far, they had not really fought with the assassin, but Bao Pengyi, who they wanted to protect, had almost died. Die. The 4 spirit guards shouted in unison, and then rushed together. Leng Shiqi saw that Bao Pengyi had 2 deep blood marks in front of him. He was seriously injured, but it was not fatal. Facing the 4 spirit guards, Leng Shiqi raised his hand and shot out a dagger. The 4 spirit guards were just about to dodge, but they were puzzled again. It was because the dagger shot by Leng Shiqi was not aimed at them, nor at Bao Pengyi behind them, but flew over their heads at an oblique angle. Did he miss? They could not understand, but they did not need to understand. At this time, the 4 spirit guards just wanted to kill this person. So, the dagger continued to shoot. Just when the dagger was about to hit Bao Pengyi's head, a stone pillar as thick as his waist strangely appeared under him, and lifted him into the air. Poochie! The dagger hit Bao Pengyi's throat. Chapter 144. Leng Shiqi had used such a strange method to kill Bao Pengyi, causing the 4 spiritual guards to be stunned. Bao Pengyi's death meant that their mission had failed. The 4 spiritual guards originally thought that this was just a very simple mission. In a small Shangyang city that did not even have a 4th realm of sky human, who could kill Bao Pengyi who was under their heavy protection. But Bao Pengyi was really dead. His death was inexplicable, and his death was very strange. One could imagine that when they returned to the heavenly cloud tower, they would inevitably face severe punishment from the sect. What made the 4 spiritual guards feel even more humiliated was that from the beginning to the end, they seemed to have been played by the assassin. As spirit cultivator sects, they simply could not bear it. So they immediately rushed over angrily. For streams of sword chi appeared at the same time, wishing that they could tear Leng Shiqi into pieces. Leng Shiqi was relieved after killing Bao Pengyi, but according to the rules of the Blood Robe Pavilion, he had to bring back the assassination target's head before he could hand over the mission. At this time, when he saw the 4 spiritual guards rushing over, his eyes revealed a hint of annoyance. He had never fought with the 4 spiritual guards. Firstly, he was afraid that they would stop him from killing Bao Pengyi. Secondly, he did not want to be involved with the heavenly cloud tower. So he raised his hand and 4 earth walls suddenly rose from the ground. The 4 spiritual guards rushed over and crashed into the earth walls. The earth walls did not stop them for long, only stopping them for a moment. However, it was during this pause that Leng Shiqi stepped on the black fog and rushed to Bao Pingyi's side. Then he held the dagger and took Bao Pingyi's head. At this moment, Leng Shiqi's mission was finally completed. Although there were some twists and turns in the process, his goal was achieved. At this time, more than 100 figures rushed over. They were the guards that Bao Pingyi had bribed. When they arrived, the first thing they saw was Bao Pingyi's headless body. They all opened their mouths wide in surprise, and their hearts were set off huge waves. Their president, Bao Pingyi, who was at the 8th level of the spirit transformation realm, was actually dead. He died under the protection of the 4 spiritual guards? Could it be that a spirit cultivator of the 4 realms of heaven had made a move? At this time, some people even began to wonder if it was the 4 spiritual guards who had killed their president. One of the 4 spiritual guards pointed at Leng Shiqi and shouted, "This is the person who killed your president, Bao Pingyi." Hearing this, many of the sect members were furious when they saw Leng Shiqi. They all raised their weapons and pressed forward. Leng Shiqi sneered in his heart. Just as he was about to leave, he heard neat footsteps coming from both ends of the street. He paused and turned his head to look. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of spirit cultivators wearing silver light armor and holding standard weapons blocked the Leng Shiqi, the 4 spiritual guards, and more than 100 Three Blades gang members. There were even dozens of archers with arrows knocked on their bowstrings, ready to shoot at any time. It's the city guards. Why are the city guards here? Could this be Chu Xinran's doing? What should we do now? The people of the Three Blades gang were suddenly in a state of panic. At this time, a middle-aged man walked out from the group of city guards. He was the city lord of Shangyang City, Chu Xinran. Chu Xinran's gaze first looked at the sullen 4 spiritual guards, then turned to Leng Shiqi, and finally landed on Bao Pingyi's head. He revealed a meaningful smile and said, "Mr. Liu, didn't you say you wanted to deal with the 4 spiritual guards? Why did you kill Bao Pingyi?" When Leng Shiqi saw Chu Xinran appear with the city guards, he knew that he had been tricked. His eyes flashed with a cold light, and he said in a hoarse voice, "What do you want to do, Mr. Chu?" Chu Xianran casually straightened his sleeves and said cheerfully, "Old Mr. Liu has done me a great favor. I am truly grateful to you. Since Mr. Liu has a grudge with the 4 spiritual guards, I will help you get rid of them." Chu Xinran wants to kill the 4 spiritual guards? A trace of doubt flashed through Leng Shiqi's heart. He quickly skipped through many thoughts in his mind. Combined with the sudden appearance of Qingko Hall's hall master Go Huarong in Jinshe Street, he faintly connected everything together. He was secretly shocked. So all of this has been under Chu Xinran's control all along. He must have secretly joined forces with Go Huarong to find an opportunity to severely damage or even destroy the Three Blades gang. Jinshe Street was a bait, and it just so happened that my appearance added fuel to the fire. What a good Chu Xinran. Thinking of this, Leng Shiqi couldn't help but secretly admire Chu Xinran. This Chu Xinran had quickly gathered the city guards and joined forces with Qingko Hall when he first arrived. This method was really extraordinary. But all of this has nothing to do with me, Leng Shiqi thought to himself. Now that he had completed his mission, he had no intention of participating in the power struggle in Shangyang City, so he said, "Since City Lord Chu has the heart, please do as you wish. This old man has other matters to attend to, so I won't disturb you." With that, Leng Shiqi hid in the dark alley behind him and disappeared. Chu Xinran didn't stop him. He turned his head and shouted to the Three Blades gang. The Three Blades gang has been bullying the people and dominating the city for many years, causing Shangyang City to be filled with complaints. As the city lord, I naturally have to punish them. However, since the main culprit, Bao Pingyi, is dead, you can leave as long as you promise not to cause trouble in the future. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. When Chu Xianran said these words, many of the gang members were moved. Most of these people were actually hired by Bao Pingyi with money. They only had this relationship of interest between them. When they saw that only Leng Shiqi had cut off their source of income, They had dared to act. But now, they didn't have the courage to face hundreds of city guards. It was true that they wanted money, but they wanted their lives even more. Immediately, 80% of the gang members fled in all directions, leaving only 20 or 30 people with sullen faces and motionless faces. These people were the ones who had followed Bao Pingyi to build the foundation of the Three Blades gang. They were the ones who were truly loyal to Bao Pingyi. At this moment, even though they knew that they would die, they still stayed. Chu Xinran sighed with emotion. Alas, there are still people who are so loyal to a selfish person like Bao Pingyi. Alas, what a pity. Shoot the arrows. Wait. Just after Chu Xinran gave the order, the 4 spiritual guards suddenly shouted. City Lord Chu, you should know who we are. Since Bao Pingyi is dead, we have nothing to do with the Three Blades gang. We won't interfere in your fight. Goodbye. Oh, who allowed you to leave? Chu Xinran said with a sinister smile. What? Chu Xinran, do you know who we are? We are the disciples of the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion. How dare you touch us? Chu Xinran sneered. Humph, when you are all dead, who will know it was me? Shoot the arrows. So. Dozens of arrows fell like a dense rain. The remaining members of the Three Blades gang were suddenly drowned in the arrows, and miserable screams rang out. The 4 spiritual guards could only bitterly resist. Even though they were in the spirit transformation realm, the arrows were not ordinary arrows. The people who shot the arrows were all spirit cultivators, so they were not easy to block. In the blink of an eye, all of them were injured. Chu Xinran waved his hand and hundreds of city guards slowly closed in. The 4 spiritual guards' faces were ashen. Leng Shiqi, who was hiding in the dark, quietly left. Chapter 145. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. The sounds of fighting could be heard throughout Shangyang City. Ordinary people could only hide in their houses and pray for a sense of security. They could only silently wait for the changes in Shangyang City. After Leng Shiqi left, he did not directly return to Shadewind Ridge. Instead, he went to Jinsher Street to take a look. The situation here was already one-sided. In fact, at the beginning, both sides had lost a team leader, so they could be considered to be evenly matched. However, the hall master of Qingkou Hall, Go Huarong, personally made a move. None of the leaders of the Three Swords gang could stop him, and suffered heavy casualties. However, they did not scatter in all directions. They were still trying their best to hold on because they still had confidence and hope in their hearts. That confidence and hope came from Bao Pingyi and the 4 spiritual guards. As long as Bao Pingyi arrived, they would be able to stabilize the situation. As long as the 4 spiritual guards arrived, they would be able to turn defense into offense. Unfortunately, they did not know that Bao Pingyi was already dead, and the 4 spiritual guards were not far from death. Leng Shiqi shook his head slightly. He had already predicted the outcome of the Three Swords gang. Then he turned around and ran towards a certain place. That was Bao Mansion. Not long after, Leng Shiqi quietly sneaked into the mansion. Now there were only 20 to 30 guards and some servants in Bao Mansion. Leng Shiqi was completely unstoppable. Byakugan activate. He activated Byakugan, and the entire Bao Mansion was within his field of vision. The target he was looking for was Bao Pingyi's private vault. Bao Pingyi was the leader of the Three Swords gang, and had taken root in Shangyang City for more than 10 years. During this time, he had collected countless precious resources. Moreover, he was a cautious person. It was impossible for him to give these resources to others for safekeeping. It was also impossible for him to build a vault in his mansion. Therefore, it was very likely that he had secretly built a secret chamber. This was the secret room that Leng Shiqi was looking for. There really is one. With the help of Byakugan's X-ray vision and the system map, Leng Shiqi quickly discovered that there was indeed a secret chamber 30 feet underground. Moreover, he could clearly see that there were more than 10 hidden mechanisms all over the secret chamber. Leng Shiqi immediately used Gaia's hand to drill into the ground, sneaking directly into the secret room, and quickly destroying all the mechanisms. Only then did he begin to carefully observe the secret room. The secret chamber wasn't very big, only about 20 feet in radius. There were many large boxes on the ground, and there were some wooden shelves on the surrounding walls. There were also some things displayed on the shelves, but there weren't many of them. Leng Shiqi first opened the big boxes. Most of the things inside were gold, silver, and other treasures. He didn't care for these things. After all, to a spirit cultivator, spirit stones were the real currency. Of course, he still packed them all up. In the last few boxes, there were some spirit tools. There were first and second tier spirit tools, but unfortunately, there were no third tier spirit tools. Leng Shiqi put away a 3-part spear. This spear could be divided into 3 parts, and there was a chain in the middle, making it more flexible to use. As for the rest of the spiritual equipment, he sold them all to the system for more than 300 system coins. After that, Leng Shiqi began to look at the things on the wooden shelf. Basically, there were some rare herbs on the shelf. They were mainly materials for refining pills. These resources were useless to Leng Shiqi, so he threw them all to the system. Now he had 641 system coins. It was enough for 6 intermediate lottery draws. It seemed like the harvest was not bad, but Leng Shiqi's eyebrows were tightly knitted. Because he had searched the entire secret chamber, but he couldn't find a single spirit stone, pill, cultivation technique, or spirit skill. These were the most important cultivation resources, but there was none. Impossible. Could it be that there are other secret chambers in the Bao residence? Leng Shiqi whispered to himself, but he couldn't find any other secret chambers even after using supercilious eyes and the system map. In the end, he could only sigh and leave the secret chamber. On the other side, there was only one person left in the 4 spirit guards. There weren't many injuries on this person's body, but his face was already deathly pale. Because there were several swords on his neck, if he dared to move, his head would be separated from his body. At this time, Chu Xian Ran walked in front of him and whispered, "Others call you the 4 spirit guards. This Chu still doesn't know your name." "Jigu," he carefully said. Chu Xian Ran's face came in front of his face and asked, "So it's Brother Ji, do you think this Chu will kill you?" Jigu suddenly felt a pressure on his heart. He silently swallowed his saliva and said, "Jigu is willing to listen to City Lord Chu's orders. It's good to talk to smart people. Then tell me, who killed the other 4 spirit guards?" Jigu's eyes spun as he thought for a bit and said, It's that assassin. He came to kill Bao Pinyi, but we couldn't protect Bao Pinyi and suffered heavy casualties." Chu Xian Ran clapped his hands and said, "Very good. Then do you know the assassin's name?" "Well, his surname seems to be Liu." Before Jigu could finish, Chu Xian Ran interrupted him. "No, his surname is not Liu but Leng. He's a fugitive named Leng Shiqi." "You? How do you know so clearly? Could it be that you?" Jigu suddenly covered his mouth, his eyes filled with fear. He was afraid of being killed. Chu Xian Ran sneered and said, "You should go back to Heavenly Cloud Tower later. You should know what to say and what not to say, right?" I know, Jigu hurriedly said. "But this Chu can't believe you, so I can only ask Brother Ji to take this pill." Chu Xian Ran took out a dark green pill and said. Jigu's eyes suddenly showed some desperation. "Oh, Brother Ji, are you not willing?" Jigu trembled and said, "After I go back, I will report to the sect as Mayor Chu said, but if I suddenly die, the sect will doubt my words." "Don't worry, I'm not that stupid. You're more useful alive than dead. After a while, someone will contact you and give you the antidote." Chu Xian Ran said and put the pill in front of Yashitsuga's mouth. Jigu knew that his life was in Chu Xian Ran's hands, and he also knew that from now on he would become a chess piece in Chu Xian Ran's hands. But at this time, if he didn't take it, he would die. He had to close his eyes and swallow the pill. Chu Xian Ran smiled and waved his hand. "Let him go." The surrounding city guards withdrew their weapons, and Jigu immediately sat on the ground, panting wildly and couldn't help coughing a few times. Chu Xian Ran didn't even look at him and led his men to Bao Mansion. Soon after, Chu Xian Ran rushed into Bao Mansion with the city guards and searched everywhere. Soon, they found the secret room where Leng Shiqi had been. However, when he saw that it was empty, his face suddenly became gloomy. Chapter 146. The next morning. The residents and peddlers of Shangyang City pushed open their doors as usual to prepare for today's work. The two streets where the battle had taken place last night had already been washed clean. There was no trace of blood, but the air was still filled with the smell of blood. Leng Shiqi had returned to his original appearance. His wide black clothes covered half of his face as he walked on the street. He had not returned to the Shadowwind Ridge to hand in the mission because he still had something to do. That was to replenish his spirit skills. In the later stages of Blood Mist Island, for some reason resources such as cultivation methods and spirit skills became fewer and fewer. Instead, there were more and more spirit stones and pills. And ever since Leng Shiqi left Blood Mist Island, he had only cultivated the floating spirit steps. In other words, Leng Shiqi had not expanded his spirit skills for a long time. Right now, his sword, saber, fist, and spear techniques had already fused into a corresponding powerful move, but the rest were still incomplete. Leng Shiqi planned to buy some palm techniques, leg techniques, and finger techniques in Shangyang City. On one hand, he could directly increase his combat strength, and on the other hand, he could use them to see if he could fuse them into a powerful spirit skill. He patted the 100 or so spirit stones in the bag at his waist, and walked into the Spirit Cultivator commercial street. Most of the residents in each city were ordinary people. Although spirit cultivators and ordinary people lived in the same city, they were from two completely different worlds. Therefore, every city had streets specially prepared for spirit cultivators, known as the Spirit Cultivator Commercial Street. Only spirit cultivators could enter the Spirit Cultivator Commercial Street. Even if it was a shop worker, even if it was a handyman, he had to be a spirit cultivator. The scale of the Spirit Cultivator Commercial Street in different cities was also different. And in a small city like Shangyang City, there was only one street. When Leng Shiqi turned into the Spirit Cultivator Commercial Street, there were a few people standing guard on the street. When they saw him walking over, they wanted to stop him. Leng Shiqi did not stop walking or say a word. The spirit energy in his body moved, and he emitted the aura of the spirit transformation realm. Those people immediately returned to their original positions obediently. Leng Shiqi walked straight into the Spirit Cultivator Commercial Street. It was still early and there were not many people on the street. He then walked into a shop. After a while he came out, but his expression didn't seem to be very good. Then he entered 4 shops in succession, all of which sold spiritual techniques. When he came out of the last shop, his expression was a little strange. It was a mixture of joy and bitterness. He muttered to himself, I didn't think spirit skills would be such a scarce resource in this world. It turned out that Leng Shiqi had visited 5 shops that sold spiritual techniques in a row, but he had gained very little. Most of the goods in the shop were materials and spirit tools, but there were very few cultivation methods and spirit techniques. Because cultivation methods and spirit techniques were basically in the hands of the various spirit cultivator sects, the ones that could be sold in the shops were all unintentionally leaked out. Even if there were, their ranks were not high. They were only at the 1st or 2nd level. He didn't even see a single 3rd level spiritual skill. Moreover, the price was ridiculously high. Even an ordinary level 2 spiritual skill would cost around 100 spirit stones. Leng Shiqi felt a little weak in his heart. He originally thought that his spirit stones weren't small, but it turned out that it was only enough to buy a level 2 spiritual skill. He felt that the price was too high, so much so that he began to miss the days on Blood Mist Island. However, he finally realized the depth of the Blood Robe Pavilion's foundation. He still remembered that there were thousands of low-level spiritual skills on display on the 1st floor of the Blood Book Hall. Moreover, as long as he was promoted to Black-Clothed Assassin, he would be able to obtain a level 3 spiritual skill for free. This kind of treatment was not something that an ordinary sect could give. Later, Leng Shiqi had an idea. He found another way and requested to see the spiritual skills. 4 of the 5 shops agreed. Unfortunately, 2 of them only took out the real spiritual skills, so he used his unlimited skill points to secretly learn 2 level 2 spiritual skills. They were Forest Front Finger and Poison Fire Palm. At the time, Leng Shiqi rejected them because they were too difficult to cultivate. The shop owners didn't have any complaints because these 2 spiritual skills were very difficult to cultivate. For example, if one mastered forest front finger, one finger could turn into a dense forest of finger shadows. However, to cultivate it, one had to polish one finger for many years, which took a very long time. As for the other poison fire palm, it didn't take too long to cultivate, but one had to soak one's hands in poison every day. Moreover, it had to be cultivated in an extremely hot environment. Of course, after successfully cultivating it, one's palm strength would contain fire poison. Once the fire poison entered the body, it would continuously corrode the opponent's meridians. It could be said to be extremely vicious. Most importantly, the compatibility between the poison fire palm and the 6-yang palm was extremely high. Leng Shiqi was confident that he could fuse them together. Thinking that he had earned 2 level 2 spiritual skills for free, Leng Shiqi felt relieved. He immediately walked out of the Spirit Cultivator business street and prepared to go to the Een Wind Ridge branch to submit the mission. However, not long after he walked out of the Spirit Cultivator business street, his body suddenly paused. He turned his head to look at a shop on the right. It was Mao Kai's coffin shop. Leng Shiqi thought to himself, so this guy actually opened the coffin shop here. No wonder he was able to collect so much information. At this moment, Mao Kai happened to see Leng Shiqi as soon as he appeared in the shop. He hurriedly gave Leng Shiqi a few glances, and then entered the house. Leng Shiqi narrowed his eyes. Then he took a big detour and quietly snuck into the coffin shop. Mao Kai was shocked when he saw Leng Shiqi suddenly appear in the coffin shop. However, he didn't ask much and immediately said with an anxious expression, "Envoy, it's not good. Someone wants to harm you." Leng Shiqi's heart moved when he heard this. He couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. He had only been in Shangyang City for 2 days, and had barely interacted with anyone who wanted to harm him. However, his heart immediately skipped a beat as he suddenly thought of someone. However, he deliberately asked in a tone of disbelief, "How is that possible? Who would harm me?" "Envoy, it's true," Leng Shiqi said indifferently. "Then tell me who wants to harm me." This he envoy, you know this little one." Mao Kai rubbed his hands. Leng Shiqi's face turned cold. "Mao Kai, do you think you can get money from me with some groundless information? Besides, I'm about to return to the branch. Even if someone wants to harm me, they won't be able to." Mao Kai was stunned for a moment, then said, "Envoy, this little one can reveal a little to you. Although the person who wants to harm you is in Shangyang City, the method to harm you is outside. As long as the envoy still has to carry out missions in the future, you might fall into a trap." Leng Shiqi saw that Mao Kai didn't seem to be lying to him, so he said, "Okay, tell me. As long as the information is true and the price is reasonable, I won't treat you badly." Mao Kai's face immediately bloomed like a chrysanthemum. However, he immediately said solemnly, "Envoy, the person who wants to harm you is Shangyang City's city lord, Chu Xinran." Chapter 147. In the coffin shop, Leng Shiqi listened to Mao Kai's narration, and the more he listened, the more shocked he became. What Mao Kai said was exactly what Chu Xinran told Ji Gu after Leng Shiqi left. After connecting all of this together, Leng Shiqi finally understood that the person who asked the Bloodcloth Pavilion to assassinate Bao Pingyi was Chu Xinran. Maybe when I went to find Chu Xinran, he had already guessed my identity, so he agreed to my request so easily. Leng Shiqi thought to himself, and at the same time, he knew where he had miscalculated. He had never thought that his employer was Chu Xinran. Since the Bloodcloth Pavilion strictly kept the identity of the employer a secret, he had never thought about who the employer was from the beginning, which led him to step into Chu Xinran's plan step by step. In the end, Chu Xinran transferred all the resentment of the Heavenly Cloud Tower to him. I actually became a scapegoat. Leng Shiqi could not help but feel resentful. Since he came to this world, he had never been schemed against like this. However, this incident also reminded him that although he had schemed against others on the Blood Fog Island before, his opponents were all young teenagers. Even if some of them were very mature, they were still ignorant of the world. Leng Shiqi, who had lived 2 lives, could easily guess their thoughts. However, now that he had come to the Great Thousand World, the opponents he faced were far from comparable to the teenagers on the Blood Fog Island. It was not only the difference in cultivation realm, but also the difference in scheming and shrewdness. Leng Shiqi secretly decided to be more careful in the future, but he immediately thought of another question. How did Mao Kai know about this? And he knew so clearly? He looked at Mao Kai coldly. Mao Kai smiled and said, Ambassador, the source of this information is absolutely reliable, so you can rest assured. It's a pity that after I got the news last night, I couldn't find you. Now that Ji Gu has run away overnight, I'm afraid we can't catch up with him. Even if he did not say it, Leng Shiqi could guess most of it. Mao Kai probably had spies among the city guards. Your information is indeed very valuable to me. Tell me, how much do you want? Leng Shiqi admitted that he was a little careless this time. Fortunately, Mao Kai was well informed. Otherwise, it would be a big problem if he encountered people from Tianyin Tower in the future. When Mao Kai heard that he was going to pay, his two little eyes immediately narrowed into slits. He, this lowly one has always been honest with both the old and the young. Furthermore, this lowly one has specially informed the esteemed envoy of the news. This lowly one is showing his sincerity. As you know, this lowly one has to support all the informants in Shangyang City. That's not a small sum of money. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi saw that he wanted to continue being long-winded, so he interrupted. Just tell me how much it is. Mao Kai didn't say anything. Instead, he stuck out a finger and looked at Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi chuckled and threw out 2 spirit stones. Mao Kai immediately caught the spirit stones and his eyes lit up. However, he hesitated when he picked up the second spirit stone and said, Esteemed envoy, this? Leng Shiqi said coldly, I want all the information about Chu Xinran. When Mao Kai heard this, he seemed to have guessed what Leng Shiqi was going to do. He was immediately shocked. Esteemed envoy, what are you going to do? Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. I just want you to give me information about Chu Xinran. Isn't 1 spirit stone enough? Mao Kai said hesitantly, but this is against the rules. Ha! Leng Shiqi frowned. Mao Kai continued. Esteemed envoy, you may not know this, but the intelligence disciples of our sect can only provide information to the esteemed envoys who have a mission. If there is no mission, we are not allowed to disclose information at will. After all, we are serving the sect, not selling information. Leng Shiqi understood after hearing this, but he didn't care about this at this time. He said directly, Since there are sect rules, I won't make things difficult for you. However, rules are dead and people are alive. Do you want to return this spirit stone to me? Mao Kai's hand holding the spirit stone began to tremble. There was a look of struggle in his eyes. In the end, he handed the spirit stone over and said, Forgive me, but I can't break the sect rules. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi was a little surprised. He could see that Mao Kai was really a person who loved money as much as his life, but such a person was actually so conservative. What an interesting person. Leng Shiqi thought to himself. He then said, You are really loyal to the sect, but I also accepted the mission to assassinate Chu Xinran. Esteemed envoy, please don't bully me. I have never received any information about this. Leng Shiqi sat on the chair next to him and said slowly, I don't have any information now, but I can find someone to go to the blood clothing pavilion with the spirit stone and issue the mission to assassinate Chu Xinran. Then I will accept it myself. It's just a matter of making 2 more trips. At that time, I will still come to you to ask for information. Unfortunately, most of the reward will be taken by the sect, and I will lose out. If I lose out, so be it. As long as I can kill Chu Xinran, I will accept it. Unfortunately, I'm afraid someone won't even get half a spirit stone. After hearing these words, Mao Kai was a little stunned. He really didn't expect Leng Shiqi to think of such a loophole. He still hesitated and said, Although that is the case, but seeing that Mao Kai was still hesitating, Leng Shiqi took out 9 spirit stones from his mustard seed bag and placed them on the table. These spirit stones looked crystal clear and faintly emitted a faint spirit light. It was very eye-catching. Leng Shiqi said, Instead of losing the spirit stones to the sect, it is better to give them to people who need them more. It saves me from making 2 more trips. What do you think? Leng Shiqi's words were like the last straw that finally crushed Mao Kai's psychological defense. Mao Kai gritted his teeth and said quietly, "Deal. But esteemed envoy, you must not leak this matter. Otherwise, I will die even if I have 10 heads." "Don't worry, I understand," Leng Shiqi replied seriously. Mao Kai looked at the 9 spirit stones on the table and said, "Okay, please wait a moment." Not long after, Mao Kai brought over 2 pieces of information. Leng Shiqi opened them and quickly read them. During this time, his eyes flashed with killing intent. Soon, Leng Shiqi walked out of the coffin shop. At this time, Mao Kai suddenly pounced on the table and stuffed the spirit stones into his arms. His face was full of smiles, but as he took them he muttered, "I didn't break the rules, I didn't break the rules." When he finished taking all the spirit stones, an extremely soft sound suddenly came from the next room, but he was still keenly aware of it. He immediately stopped smiling and walked to the side room. Then he opened a secret passage and took out a piece of information. Urgent information? Mao Kai opened it and took a look. His face immediately changed and he shouted, "Not good, esteemed envoy, come back quickly." Chapter 148. Late at night, in the city lord's mansion, Chu Xinran stood in front of his desk, picked up a brush, and wrote "Qi" on the desk. At this moment, his face was also very ugly. The reason was that he had no money. That's right, the city lord was now worried about money. He sighed deeply and said to himself, "Alas, I didn't expect that Bao Pingyi would deliberately build a fake secret room. No, I must find a way to find his private treasury. Otherwise, I won't be able to collect the promised salary for the city guards next month." Leng Shiqi, who had been lurking under his study, heard this and understood Chu Xinran's approach. It turns out that he took out all the money in the city lord's mansion to issue an assassination mission for Bao Pengyi in the blood-clothed pavilion, and bribed the city guards. He was able to persuade the Qingkou clan to take over the streets of the Three Swords Association. As for Chu Xinran, he wanted to use Bao Pingyi's private treasury to make up for the city lord's mansion's deficit. What a good plan. Fortunately, I arrived there one step ahead of time. Leng Shiqi came here at this moment for only one purpose, which was to assassinate Chu Xinran. Chu Xinran schemed against him, and even put the blame on him for killing the 4 spiritual guards, causing him to provoke the heavenly cloud tower for no reason. He must take revenge. Of course, Leng Shiqi was not impulsive. After reading Chu Xinran's information during the day, he spent the whole day investigating the city lord's mansion. He found that Chu Xinran's vigilance was no less than Bao Pingyi's. Not only were there city guards patrolling around his room, but there were also many hidden sentries. If he acted rashly, he would definitely be surrounded. However, he was not unprepared. To be safe, he used all the system coins he got today for the lottery. The results were mixed. Out of the 6 intermediate lottery prizes, 4 of them were useless materials at this stage. As for the remaining 2, one was a treasure-seeking plate, which could search for nearby treasures. Unfortunately, it could only be used once. The other one was in Leng Shiqi's hands at this moment. Chu Xinran, who was still deep in thought, suddenly noticed the paper on the desk fluttering twice, but there was no wind. Chu Xinran immediately became alert. His eyes swept around, but he didn't find any trace of anyone. However, when he turned his gaze back, he was shocked to see a short figure sitting on the chair next to him. Chu Xinran felt a chill run down his spine. He silently cursed the guards and sentries outside for being blind. But when he took a closer look and realized that this person was a little familiar, a smile appeared on his face. "So it's old Mr. Liu. Mr. really comes and goes like a shadow. I remember that Mr. said that you had something important to do. Why are you looking for me again?" Leng Shiqi chuckled and said, "Isn't Castellan Chu asking the obvious? I don't understand." At this time, Leng Shiqi didn't want to waste his breath on Chu Xinran. He opened his palm, and there was a light blue rectangular transparent crystal. Then he injected his spiritual power into it, and the crystal disappeared. Then 6 light blue curtains sealed the room from top to bottom. It was as if they were trapped inside the crystal. This was the intermediate level prize, a one-time consumable, the Forbidden Barrier. Not only could this barrier trap people, but it could also isolate all sounds, vibrations, and even spiritual energy fluctuations from the outside. The reason Leng Shiqi didn't choose to suddenly attack was because he wanted to set up a barrier first to avoid alerting the city guards outside. When Chu Xian Ran saw the barrier, his eyes immediately revealed a look of horror. He immediately shouted, "Guards!" However, there was no movement outside at all. Chu Xian Ran's expression couldn't help but become gloomy. He didn't expect Leng Shiqi to have such a method. Without the city guards, he could only face Leng Shiqi alone. Leng Shiqi didn't want to give him time to think. The moment he set up the barrier, he pulled out 2 scimitars and attacked. Umph! Chu Xian Ran let out a cold snort. His robe fluttered and a powerful aura suddenly erupted. It directly overturned the table before him. His cultivation was actually at the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm. The table flew out and smashed towards Leng Shiqi, who was rushing over. 9th level of the spirit transformation realm. The information clearly said that Chu Xian Ran was at the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm, but he was still hiding his strength. Leng Shiqi was surprised, but he still slashed out with his scimitars. With a bang sound, the table was smashed into wood chips in the blink of an eye. Leng Shiqi's figure didn't stop at all. A purple light bloomed on the twin sabers. Chu Xian Ran's eyes widened. He knew that Leng Shiqi's scimitar technique was amazing, so he had to make the first move. He reached out his hands and golden light appeared on his palms. Then he suddenly slapped out. 2 abnormally powerful golden palms howled out. Leng Shiqi slashed out with his scimitars. His 2 scimitars collided with the golden palms, and he felt as if his scimitars had hit 2 pieces of metal. He couldn't help but take a few steps back. Seeing this, Leng Shiqi's heart couldn't help but tremble. It has to be said that his Gale Slash was at the peak of the spirit transformation realm, and his scimitars were level 4 spirit artifacts. Even in this situation, he still couldn't beat Chu Xian Ran. More importantly, Chu Xian Ran was able to create palms? Leng Shiqi thought. Spirit chi leaving the body is the sign of the spirit pulse realm of the sky realm. This Chu Xian Ran is a spirit pulse realm expert? No, his aura is clearly at the spirit transformation realm. But I understand he is at the peak of the spirit transformation realm. Although there was only one realm between the spirit transformation realm and the spirit pulse realm, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. There were 2 conditions to break through to the spirit pulse realm. One was to compress the chi sea in the body into a spirit sea. In addition, one had to open up one of the 72 spirit veins in the body. Chu Xian Ran's spirit force was already at the point where his chi sea and spirit sea merged. Generally speaking, as long as someone like this cultivated steadily, there was a high chance that they could break through to the spirit pulse realm. From then on, they would be reborn, live longer, shed their mortal body, and step into the sky realm of the sky realm. Chu Xian Ran forced Leng Shiqi back with one move and laughed heartily. Ha, ignorant. What do you think this Chu is relying on? It's not those small tricks, but my strength. You dare to kill me with just you. Immediately after, Chu Xian Ran once again sent out 2 palms. 2 golden palms, even more powerful than before, flew toward Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi didn't dare to meet them head-on this time and chose to dodge. A black mist rose from under his feet, and he dodged the golden palms like a feather. The palms slammed into the bookshelves behind Leng Shiqi. The bookshelves and books instantly turned into dust. Dodge. Didn't you want to kill me? This Chu is standing right here. Come and kill me. Chu Xian Ran's palms flashed with a golden light as he shouted. Leng Shiqi seemed to be angered by Chu Xian Ran's words. He raised his 2 blades and charged straight at Chu Xian Ran. Chu Xian Ran saw this and laughed in his heart. Just as he was about to attack, Leng Shiqi's figure suddenly turned into 12 illusions, and the blades in his hands turned into swords. Chapter 149. When Leng Shiqi rushed over, he used the system space to change his blade into a sword. His entire body entered a strange state in an instant. His body moved and turned into 12 phantoms. Each of the phantoms had a different movement. Some charged forward, some attacked from the side, some jumped high, some slid on the ground, some stabbed out with invisible sword chi, and some stabbed out with light blue sword chi. What was even more strange was that although these illusions looked slow, they all stabbed towards Chu Xi and ran in the blink of an eye. Chaotic Blossom's dazzling eyes. This was a move that Lung Shiqi had used with his cultivation at the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm. It was a combination of the ethereal steps, the impacting meridian sword energy, and the cold frost sword energy, dazzling flowers. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Chu Xian Ran was at a loss of what to do in the face of 12 phantoms. He couldn't tell which one was Lung Shiqi's real body, or rather, all of them were real bodies. The smile on his face disappeared and turned into shock. He couldn't believe that such an exquisite spirit technique was mastered by a mere spirit transformation realm cultivator. However, he didn't have the time to think about it. He could only clench his teeth and send out 4 golden palms. Wherever the palms passed, the illusions and sword chi were scattered. However, there were still 4 illusions that came to his side. At this critical moment, Chu Xian Ran lowered his body and dodged the sword. His body suddenly spun and a faint golden light surrounded him in an attempt to block the remaining 3 illusions. Unfortunately, Lung Shiqi's 3 phantoms were extremely agile, and with the help of Byakugan, they quickly found Chu Xian Ran's weakness. 3 streaks of sword chi pierced Chu Xian Ran's ribs, waist, and legs respectively. The sword chi tore open 3 bloody wounds. 2 of the channel opening sword chi, and 1 of the frost sword chi entered his body and blocked his meridians and froze his flesh. Chu Xian Ran was extremely shocked. He immediately used his spirit energy to disperse the sword chi. However, the 3 sword chi were like maggots that were difficult to get rid of in a short period of time. The key was that he didn't have that much time to get rid of the sword chi because Lung Shiqi turned around and sent out another sword strike, aiming straight for Chu Xian Ran's throat. At this time, Chu Xian Ran could only suppress the 3 sword chi to prevent them from spreading. Then he stomped his feet on the ground and used the force to quickly retreat. Lung Shiqi's sword pierced through the air. He flicked his wrist and 3 frost sword chi flew out. Soon after, he pointed his spear, aiming at Chu Xian Ran's throat. With a low roar, his entire body surged with an unparalleled domineering aura. Then he straightened his spear and charged over like a sharp sword. Halfway through, the tip of the spear flashed and a huge cross-shaped light suddenly shot out. At this time, Chu Xinran had just smashed the 3 frosty sword chis and saw Lung Shiqi's fierce move. It was too late for him to dodge. At this moment, a trace of hesitation flashed in his eyes. But he immediately stuck his tongue out and swallowed a small pill hidden in his teeth. After swallowing the pill, Chu Xian Ran's aura suddenly skyrocketed. The robe on his upper body flew off, and a crystal-clear meridian could be vaguely seen on his right arm. That was the spiritual vein. At this moment, Chu Xinran had actually used the power of the pill to forcefully open half of his spirit meridian. However, he was still not in the spirit meridian realm. At most, he was half a step into the spirit meridian realm. Originally, as long as Chu Xinran was given 1 or 2 more years, he could naturally break through. But now that he was facing a life and death crisis, he had no choice but to forcibly increase his strength. However, this was equivalent to destroying his own future. For someone like him, who used external items to forcefully open a spirit vein, even after breaking through to the spirit vein stage, it would be difficult for him to progress. He would probably die of old age at this stage. Thinking of this, Chu Xian Ran's face was filled with hatred and madness. Originally, he had come to Upper Yang City to give himself a chance to show off. According to his original plan, as long as he pacified the city guards and dealt with the 3 Blades gang, he could go into seclusion to cultivate. As long as he broke through to the Spirit Pulse realm, Upper Yang City would be in his hands. After that, he would be able to conspire for another major event. However, his plans had been completely disrupted today, and he had even lost his cultivation future. He was filled with hatred. He wanted to kill Lung Shiqi. Chu Xinran pushed out his right palm, and a golden palm shadow that was 3 times larger than before shot out, meeting Lung Shiqi's formation-breaking cross spear. The cross light at the tip of the spear collided with the golden palm shadow, and an explosion occurred, causing the entire barrier to tremble slightly. The white light and the golden palm shadow reflected off each other, and in the end, both gradually dissipated. Neither could do anything to the other, but Lung Shiqi's three-section spear had a few more cracks. At the same time, his expression was not good. He had used two killing moves, Chaotic Blossom, gradually mesmerizing eyes, and formation-breaking cross spear, but they were still unable to do anything to Chu Xinran. Is this the strength of an orthodox spirit cultivator? A half-step spirit vein stage spirit cultivator? However, Lung Shiqi immediately sensed that half of the spirit vein on Chu Xinran's right arm had dimmed a lot. It was obvious that the palm strike had consumed a lot of his energy. Just as Lung Shiqi was about to attack again, Chu Xinran made a move first. A golden light flashed behind him, and he actually passed through the golden ripples and instantly appeared beside Lung Shiqi, sending out another fierce palm strike. At this moment, Lung Shiqi's hair stood on end. He did not expect Chu Xinran's speed to be so fast. Lung Shiqi immediately moved his spirit energy, and the patterns on his back and abdomen suddenly lit up. Then a gold and silver light flashed, and his body suddenly expanded. A layer of thin silver armor covered his body. He had activated two Beast Origin battle patterns at this moment. His aura exploded. However, Chu Xinran's golden palm shadow had already arrived with boundless strength. Facing this abnormally ferocious palm strike, the force of the palm pierced his face, causing him to feel a faint pain. At this moment, he was instead extremely calm. Suddenly, a flash of understanding appeared in his mind, and he unexpectedly followed up with a palm strike. When the palm struck out, it instantly turned into 6 palm shadows. And within the palm shadows, there was a bit of fire. Then the 6 palm shadows suddenly merged into one. Lung Shiqi's palm also ignited a faint flame and blasted against the golden palm shadow. Boom, boom, boom. The two palms collided, and suddenly a violent force was set off. With the two of them as the center, the tiles and furniture in the entire room were all blasted out and smashed into the barrier. There was no place in the entire room that was intact. Lung Shiqi's body was blasted out and slammed into the barrier. The thin armor on his right arm was completely broken, and traces of blood seeped out. His arm was a little twisted, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Obviously, he was seriously injured. As for Chu Xinran, he was not in a good state either. The spirit vein on his arm had disappeared, and his entire arm was charred black as if it had been burned. And if one could see inside his arm, they would be even more surprised to find that the meridians, bones, and flesh had already been corroded to a terrible state. This was the 6-yang poison fire palm that Lung Shiqi had fused with the 6-yang palm, and the poison fire palm at the critical moment. Chapter 150. The 6-yang poisonous fire palm had completely crippled Chu Xinran's right arm. It was his strongest right arm after unlocking his spirit vein. Chu Xinran had already begun to lose confidence. After using all his trump cards, he was the one who was injured even more. At this point, he began to seriously doubt the identity of his opponent. Lung Shiqi's cultivation level was not very high, but his spirit force was pure and his foundation was deep. Not only was his blade technique amazing, but his sword technique, spear technique, and palm technique were all stronger than the last. How could such a person be just a small assassin in black? However, what happened next shocked him even more. Lung Shiqi's left hand flashed with starlight, and a circular formation appeared before him. A huge sword tip with a shocking cold aura appeared from it. The cold aura overflowed, causing Chu Xinran's limbs to stiffen. Then the sword tip suddenly shot out and pierced his heart. It was Spirit Attack, Ice Giant Sword. Chu Xinran spat out several mouthfuls of scarlet blood. He stared at Lung Shiqi with eyes filled with disbelief. He muttered, "Impossible." However, before he could finish his sentence, he fell to the ground and died. Seeing that Chu Xinran was finally dead, Lung Shiqi immediately gasped for breath. Although he had activated 2 Beast Origin battle patterns in this battle, he had still suffered heavy injuries. Moreover, the consumption of spirit force was extremely large. In particular, the newly comprehended 6-yang poisonous fire palm had consumed more than 30% of his spirit force. At the same time, he had used this battle to fuse another move, which was a pleasant surprise. He had discovered that the higher the intensity of the battle, the faster his comprehension of spirit techniques would be. Then Lung Shiqi looked around. The forbidden boundary was still there, so he did not have to worry about being noticed. Then he swallowed a few pills and began to search Chu Xinran's body. Unexpectedly, he found a mustard seed bag. Chu Xinran was only at the spirit transformation realm. Even though he was the lord of a city, Shangyang City was only a small remote city. Logically speaking, he should not have something as precious as a mustard seed bag. But since there was, it showed that Chu Xinran's identity was not that simple. Leng Shiqi didn't care about this. His face lit up as he hurriedly opened it. First of all, the space in this mustard seed bag was half as small as his, and there were very few things inside. There were only a few dozen spirit stones and some ordinary medicinal pills. The rest were Chu Xinran's personal belongings. It could be said that the harvest was meager. This was a little too shabby. However, Leng Shiqi thought about how Chu Xian Ran emptied the treasury of the city lord's mansion. Chu Xian Ran might have even lost his own fortune. What's this? Leng Shiqi suddenly saw two strange things in the mustard seed bag. One of them was a dark blue round plate that was half the size of a palm. One side of the plate was engraved with the 9 heavens' profound thunder, while the other side was engraved with the word dark. He didn't understand what it meant, but he could roughly guess that it was a symbol of status. The other was a tattered map with the words, Tomb of XX Marquis, vaguely written on it. Leng Shiqi glanced at it a few times before throwing it into the mustard seed bag. Finally, he burned Chu Xinran's body with fire, erased all traces, removed the forbidden boundary, and left the city lord's mansion from underground. The next morning, Leng Shiqi appeared on the street. His face was slightly pale as he ate some breakfast at a roadside stall. Then he bought a horse and walked towards the city gate. However, when he arrived at the city gate, he stopped. It wasn't because someone stopped him, but because he found a strange symbol in the corner of the city gate. It was the secret sign of the Blood Garment Pavilion, which meant that there was an important matter. Is this the sign Mao Kai left for me? Or is there someone else in Shangyang City? Forget it, I'll go find him first. It won't take much time anyway. Leng Shiqi thought to himself. Then he turned back and walked towards the coffin shop. When Mao Kai saw Leng Shiqi again, he immediately shouted in surprise, "Emissary, you're not dead." Leng Shiqi's face sank when he heard this. Seeing Leng Shiqi's unfriendly expression, Mao Kai smiled awkwardly and said, "Emissary, please don't assassinate Chu Xinran. I just received an urgent secret report last night. Chu Xinran's cultivation. It's the peak of the spirit transformation realm." Leng Shiqi finished Mao Kai's sentence. Mao Kai was startled for a moment, then his eyes and mouth slowly widened. His lips trembled as he said, "Emissary, how did you know? Could it be that you've already?" At this point, Mao Kai made a throat-slitting gesture. Leng Shiqi didn't say anything and only nodded. He didn't deliberately hide it from Mao Kai. After all, he had taken the information on Chu Xinran from Mao Kai, and the news of Chu Xinran's death would probably spread soon. Hiss. Mao Kai sucked in a breath of cold air when he heard this. That's the peak of the spirit transformation realm. And his identity is extraordinary. Did he really die? In truth, there was something Mao Kai didn't say out loud. Leng Shiqi's cultivation was only at the 5th layer of the spirit transformation realm. How could he kill Chu Xinran, who was at the peak of the spirit transformation realm, and assassinate him in the city lord's mansion? The city guards hadn't even discovered it yet. How did he do it? Of course, Mao Kai didn't ask too much. He knew that trouble comes from the mouth. Leng Shiqi said indifferently, "The news should spread soon. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first." Although he had killed Chu Xinran, he was still injured. He wanted to return to the pavilion to recuperate. However, he didn't expect Mao Kai to stop him and say, "Emissary, please wait. There's something you might not know." Leng Shiqi stopped and asked in confusion, What is it?" Mao Kai leaned over and whispered, "That Chu Xinran's identity is not simple. He is the Dark Thunder Guard of the Thunderfire dynasty." Dark Thunder Guard? When Leng Shiqi heard this, he immediately thought of the token with the thunder pattern engraved on it. Mao Kai explained, "Emissary, you might not know this, but the Dark Thunder Guard belongs to the Thunderfire dynasty's royal family. They are responsible for dealing with shameful matters. Moreover, they have great authority. They can monitor the royal family and investigate the officials and commoners. Those who can enter the Dark Thunder Guard are all elites among elites. Chu Xinran is one of them. Leng Shiqi nodded. So that's how it is. That Chu Xinran is indeed extraordinary. Mao Kai continued. Emissary, you killed a member of the Dark Thunder Guard. The higher-ups will definitely send people to investigate. If there are any clues left behind, I'm afraid they will quickly find you. At this moment, Leng Shiqi was a bit glad that he had destroyed all the traces, so he said, I erased the traces of the fight. They shouldn't be able to find anything. Mao Kai heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. If he was really found out, he might also be found out by following the vine to the melon. With that, Leng Shiqi left. Chapter 151. At this moment, in the city lord's mansion, a large group of people were walking back and forth in front of Chu Xianran's room with anxious expressions. Why hasn't the city lord come out yet? After the battle between the Qingkou Hall and the Three Sabers Association, there are still a lot of messes to clean up. We have to wait for the city lord to make a decision. Did something happen? Why don't we go in and take a look? That's not very good. We're all doing this for Shangyang City. I don't think the city lord will blame us. All right. Everyone pushed open the door, but what they saw was a mess. Everything that could be seen was shattered into pieces and squashed against the wall. Only half of a charred corpse was left in the room. They turned pale with fright and looked at each other. They knew that something bad had happened. And the culprit of this matter, Leng Shiqi, had already urged his horse out of the city and rushed back to the Wind Ridge. The city lord's death could not be hidden. After all, so many people and guards had seen it. The city lord's mansion was originally a plate of loose sand, so the news quickly spread. When the news of Chu Xianran's death came out, the entire city was in an uproar. Whether it was the ordinary residents or the spirit cultivators, they were all a little uneasy. The destruction of the Three Sabers Association 2 days ago had made many people realize that Shangyang City was about to change. But only a day had passed, and the new city lord, Chu Xianran, was also dead. Such a huge change made many people feel uneasy, causing the already desolate Shangyang City to become even more lifeless. However, as the saying goes, some people are happy while others are sad. And vice versa. There was one person in the city who was very happy, and that was the hall master of the Qingkou Hall, Go Huarong. He and Chu Xianran had joined hands to exterminate the Three Sabers Association. And Chu Xianran died the next day. This was equivalent to giving the entire Shangyang City to him. Of course, there were also many people who guessed that it was Go Huarong who killed Chu Xianran, but he did not care about that. He directly sent out all his gang members, and in just a day he occupied more than half of the streets in the city. Vaguely he was about to become the overlord of Shangyang City. Even until late at night, the city lord's mansion was still brightly lit. There was an endless stream of people coming and going inside, but everyone's faces were filled with worry. There was an atmosphere of panic that enveloped the entire city lord's mansion. In the room where Leng Shiqi and Chu Xinran were fighting, an old man with a goatee was pacing around with bright eyes. He seemed to be observing every detail in the room, fearing that he would miss out on even the slightest clue. This man was the famous coroner master in Donglin County, Zhuang Qingping. He had solved countless strange cases for Donglin County. It was even rumored that he could tell the cause of death, the time of death, how many people he had killed, what kind of weapon he had used, and even what kind of spiritual technique he had used just by looking at a corpse. Until now, he had never made a wrong judgment. He could be said to be an eccentric. Coincidentally, Zhuang Qingping happened to be passing by Upper Sun City. When he heard that the city lord Chu Xianran had died mysteriously, he took the initiative to show himself. The people in the city lord's mansion didn't know how Chu Xianran had died, so they couldn't report to their superiors. When they learned that Zhuang Qingping was here, they welcomed him as if he had caught a life-saving straw. After a long while, the old man squatted in front of the charred corpse that had been burned to the point where it no longer had a human shape. His hands suddenly emitted a faint layer of spiritual light, as if he had put on a pair of thin gloves. He began to carefully examine Chu Xian Ran's corpse, which only had half of a charred corpse left. The more he examined, the more he frowned. He waved his hand, and then a very stout man next to him bowed and said, "Lord Zhuang, what can I do for you?" This man's name was Zhong Qi, and he was Chu Xian Ran's deputy. He helped him deal with the affairs of the city lord's mansion. Now that Chu Xian Ran was dead, many troubles fell on his head. Zhuang Qingping asked, "Let me ask you, did no one hear anything last night?" Zhong Qi answered seriously, "Lord Zhuang, according to the report of the guards in the mansion, there was no sound in the room last night." Zhuang Qingping was surprised and said, "That's strange. From the degree of destruction in the room, the spiritual energy fluctuations should be comparable to a spirit cultivator at the peak of the spirit transformation realm. How could no one notice such a big commotion? And from the traces, someone used an extremely powerful spear technique. Other than that, City Lord Chu's body also had sword wounds and traces of scarlet poison palm force entering his body. However, the fatal injury that caused City Lord Chu's death came from a powerful ice spirit technique. His body was set on fire after his death. The more Zhongqi listened, the more shocked he became. His eyelids twitched as he said, "Lord Zhuang means that there were 4 people who avoided all the guards and hidden sentries last night. At the same time, they sneaked into the City Lord's mansion to assassinate City Lord Chu. There was even a spirit cultivator among them." "That's right. But that's impossible." Zhongqi still found it hard to believe. "Nothing is impossible. Originally, I was also curious as to why they could sneak in so easily without making any noise. It seems like this was the work of that spirit cultivator. Look, everything in this room is broken beyond recognition. Only the surrounding walls are undamaged. It must be that spirit caster who set up a restriction formation, or something like that. The abilities of spirit cultivators have always been strange and unpredictable. There's no need to make a fuss over nothing," Zhongqi said. "So it's like that. Then who does Lord Zhuang think the culprit is?" Zhuang Qingping coldly snorted. "Humph, to be able to take out such a large sum of money and send out 4 spirit transformation realm late-stage spirit cultivators, including a spirit cultivator to assassinate City Lord Chu. Such a person is definitely not someone you and I can provoke. Furthermore, if I'm not wrong, City Lord Chu's identity is probably not simple. Forget it. This old man is just passing by and does not want to meddle in other people's business. You just need to follow my instructions and report it. Don't worry about anything else." Zhongqi nodded his head and said, "This official understands. Many thanks for Lord Zhuang's help." Leng Shiqi did not care about the changes in Shangyang City. He had already completed his mission and killed the enemy who schemed against him. Now he did not have any lingering thoughts or interest in Shangyang City. He just wanted to quickly return to the pavilion and recuperate. It was also because of his injuries that his speed was slower. He did not return to the pavilion for an entire day. In the end, he could only sleep in the wilderness. However, he did not care. He directly sank into the ground out of habit. After casually eating and drinking, he began to cultivate and recuperate. However, not long after, he vaguely heard hurried footsteps coming from the ground. Leng Shiqi immediately opened his supercilious eyes and immediately saw several huge balls of spirit qi. Among them, the weakest was more than 10 times his spirit qi. One of them had an enormous spirit qi that could be said to be terrifying. Leng Shiqi was shocked. Although he did not know the specific cultivation level of these people, there was no doubt that they were experts of the 4 realms of heaven. Why would so many experts of the 4 realms of heaven suddenly come to such a remote place? Chapter 152. The next morning, Leng Shiqi had already arrived near the Shady Wind Ridge. He selectively forgot about the spirit cultivators of the 4 realms of heaven and human that he had accidentally met last night. He didn't dare to have a curiosity that he shouldn't have. He drove the horse away and entered the Shady Wind Ridge alone. His speed was not slow as he stepped on the black fog. After a while, Leng Shiqi arrived at the entrance of the pavilion. However, he saw dozens of people gathered there from a distance. He could feel the strong smell of gunpowder, even from so far away. Leng Shiqi frowned. Is someone here to cause trouble for the Blood Robe Pavilion? This is the Blood Robe Pavilion, one of the 7 top sects in the world. Even if it's just a branch, it's not something that ordinary sects can afford to offend. Then he hid his figure and quietly went around from the side. He did not expect to find a familiar figure behind a big rock. That person was Fan Zhengqiu, who had brought him to the Donglin County branch. At this time, Fan Zhengqiu was looking in the direction of the entrance of the branch. Suddenly, someone patted him on the shoulder. Fan Zhengqiu was immediately startled. He pulled out a dagger from somewhere and was about to stab. However, when he saw that the person was Leng Shiqi, he immediately stopped and let out a sigh of relief. He said in a low voice, "Junior brother Leng, it's you. You almost accidentally injured yourself without making a sound. By the way, you just came back from a mission, right?" "That's right." Leng Shiqi nodded. He then asked, "Senior brother Fan, what happened in the pavilion? Who are those people?" Fan Zhengqiu said with a serious expression, "They're from the Tang family." "The Tang family?" Leng Shiqi recalled the distribution of forces in Donglin County. Speaking of the forces in Donglin County, the Mountain Sea sect, one of the 9 major sects, was naturally the dominant one. Even the Thunder Flame dynasty was suppressed. However, the area of Donglin County was not small. The Mountain Sea sect was built in the vicinity of the sea. Of course, other forces would be born in the remaining large area. Sects like the Blood Robe Pavilion and the Mountain Sea sect, that could be ranked on the world sect ranking, were considered the top forces. The sects below them were divided into 3 levels. From bottom to top, there were third-rate forces, second-rate forces, and first-rate forces. Experts who were able to cultivate to the spirit aperture realm had the qualifications to establish their own sect. And the forces established by people of this realm were generally third-rate forces. The Heavenly Cloud Tower, where the 4 spiritual guards belonged, was a third-rate sect. In Donglin County, there were dozens of third-rate forces, and there were only about 10 second-rate forces. As for first-rate forces, there were only 2, and the Tang family was one of them. The Tang clan was a great clan that had risen in recent decades. Their clan leader, Tang Haoquang, was a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm. But why did they come here? Leng Shiqi asked in confusion. What is the Tang family doing in our branch? Brother Leng, there's something you don't know, but this matter is very satisfying. Fan Zhengqiu raised his eyebrows and said, the Tang clan's reputation in Donglin County can be said to be second only to the Mountain Sea sect. The biggest reason is that the Tang clan has a genius called Tang Heyu. This person broke through to the spiritual pulse realm at the age of 24, which shocked the whole Donglin County, and even overshadowed the disciples of the Mountain Sea sect. There are even rumors that the Tang clan may become one of the 10 aristocratic families in the world sect ranking list because of Tang Heyu. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi knew that Fan Zhengqiu had not gotten to the point, but he was not in a hurry. He even cooperated and asked, Tang Heyu is really worthy of the title of genius. Then what happened? Fan Zhengqiu curled the corner of his mouth and said coldly, then just a few days ago, Tang Heyu was killed. He was killed. Such a great genius was killed. Leng Shiqi's mind raced. Combined with the appearance of the Tang clan here, he instantly thought of a possibility. Tang Heyu was probably killed by the Blood Robe Pavilion. Fan Zhengqiu continued in a proud tone. Junior brother Leng should have guessed it. Yes, Tang Heyu was killed by a disciple of our sect. The person who carried out this task is called Bing Shang. He can be said to be a genius disciple of our Donglin County branch. He is definitely not more than 30 years old, and has just broken through to the spiritual pulse realm not long ago. In terms of cultivation speed, he may not be as fast as Tang Heyu, but in terms of combat effectiveness, the result is obvious. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi also understood the ins and outs of the matter. Bing Shang, a killer of the Donglin County branch, killed the genius of the Tang clan, Tang Heyu. So the Tang clan came to settle the score. However, Leng Shiqi had another question. He asked, our Blood Robe Pavilion is only responsible for carrying out tasks. Even if the Tang clan wants to take revenge and make trouble, They should not come to us. Besides, the Tang clan does not have the strength to challenge the Bloodrobe Pavilion. Fan Zhengqiu snorted coldly and said, as everyone knows, we only do things for money and do not have any grudges. But after all, this is Donglin County, which is too far from the general pavilion, and the Tang clan is a local tyrant, so they shamelessly asked for the information of the employer. The one who came was Tang Haoqing, the elder of the Tang clan and also Tang Heyu's father. He was in the Gang Spirit realm, and brought many masters of the celestial being realm to suppress the situation. But as the employer of the killer force, the information of our sect must not be leaked. This is the root of the problem, so they began to negotiate there. After figuring all this out, Leng Shiqi somewhat despised the Tang clan's behavior. They did not have the ability to find out the mastermind behind, so they came to make trouble for the Bloodrobe Pavilion? But suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. Tang Haoqing and his gang could not be those people he met last night, could they? Leng Shiqi secretly estimated that the possibility was great. Masters of the celestial being realm were not cabbages on the roadside. They were probably these people. At this time, Fan Zhengqiu suddenly said, "Hey, there seems to be a quarrel over there." Leng Shiqi looked up and saw that the two leaders of the Bloodrobe Pavilion and the Tang clan began to quarrel loudly. It seemed that the negotiation had failed. The leader of the Bloodrobe Pavilion was Guizhu, the leader of the Bloodrobe Pavilion. He was saying in a low voice, "Tang Haoqing, your Tang clan is so powerful. Today, you have already broken the rules of our pavilion by coming here. You want the information of the employer? Dream on." Tang Haoqing, the elder of the Tang clan, was already as black as the bottom of a pot. He immediately said angrily, "I have already said that the Tang clan will pay whatever price you want. Don't you make money by assassination? Now I will pay you more. Tell me who wants to kill Tang Heyu." No comment. Guizhu said firmly. Tang Haoqing's face was as dark as water. He said through gritted teeth, "Don't forget that this is Donglin County." Guizhu's attitude was even tougher. He snorted and said, "Don't forget that standing in front of you is the Bloodrobe Pavilion, one of the 7 unique in the world." Leng Shiqi quickly flashed out, but Fan Zhengqiu was a beat slower. The raging flames suddenly swallowed the big rock and Fan Zhengqiu. It was as if a giant flame beast had swallowed him completely. He didn't even have a chance to scream before there was nothing left of him. Although Leng Shiqi wasn't hit head-on, just a little bit of the aftershock was enough to scorch the thin silver armor on his back. Bursts of intense pain instantly spread throughout his body. What was even more terrifying was that the flames exploded after swallowing Fan Zhengqiu. Leng Shiqi was in the range of the explosion. He was horrified. He raised his right hand and 5 earth walls appeared in front of him. Immediately, his left hand flashed and emitted a dense cold air that covered the earth walls. The 5 earth walls instantly turned into 5 ice walls. Leng Shiqi continued to turn and run. Every few steps he ran, he would erect an earth wall behind him. At this time, the scattered flames smashed down. When they touched the ice walls, they immediately caused a sizzling sound. The 5 ice walls didn't even last a second before they turned into a pool of mud. The fire continued to spread, and the earthen walls that Leng Shiqi had set up were all shattered like paper. From beginning to end, it had only bought him less than 2 breaths of time. However, it was these 2 seconds that allowed Leng Shiqi to hide in the dense forest next to him. Unfortunately, a ball of fire still hit his back. Pooh! Leng Shiqi immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. The fire burned the thin armor on his body. The thin armor was actually transformed from his skin. This was equivalent to burning his skin and flesh. In addition, a majestic blazing aura poured into his body, constantly destroying his meridians and internal organs. Even though Leng Shiqi's body was strong and he had activated 2 Beast Yuan battle tattoos, he still couldn't bear it. He could only quickly burrow into the ground. He didn't dare to stay for a moment. He went more than 100 feet underground before stopping. He hurriedly swallowed a few elixirs to restore his chi, blood and spiritual power, and then began to suppress the extremely violent blazing aura in his body. At the door of the pavilion, Ghost Ju was secretly surprised when he saw Tang Haoqing suddenly attack. He had long noticed that there were two people hiding nearby. He had always thought that they were the Tang family's secret sentries or passers-by. If they were from the Bloodcloak Pavilion, they would have come directly. There was no need to hide. But in fact, they were really from the Bloodcloak Pavilion. Coincidentally, Fan Zhengqiu and Leng Shiqi had just returned from a mission. Leng Shiqi didn't know much about Donglin County, so he asked a few more questions. Who would have thought that he would bring disaster upon himself? Under Tang Haoqing's fire, Fan Zhengqiu's face was turned to ashes before he could even see it. But when Ghost Ju saw Leng Shiqi's face, his eyes suddenly widened. Leng Shiqi? Why was Leng Shiqi there? In this pavilion, anyone could die, except for Leng Shiqi. When Ghost Ju saw Leng Shiqi was hit by the fire, his qi and blood surged, and his horrible spiritual power at the peak of Gang's spirit realm broke out. Dozens of people in front and behind, except for Tang Haoqing, were all shaken out. At this moment, there were gusts of chilly wind around Ghost Ju, and his blood-red robe was rustling in the wind. He stared at Tang Haoqing, revealing an amazing murderous intent. Seeing this, Tang Haoqing's face turned a little pale. Although he was in the same realm as Ghost Ju now, Ghost Ju used to be one of the 9 famous ghost bloodcloak killers, a great master in the realm of oneness of heaven and men. Now his cultivation realm had fallen, but his fighting experience and means were far beyond Tang Haoqing's. Ghost Ju raised his arms, and the chilly wind around him suddenly spread out. Suddenly, a strong chilly wind blew in a radius of hundreds of feet, and the sound of ghosts crying could be faintly heard. Seeing this, Tang Haoqing's face finally changed. He shouted, "Ghost Ju, you're serious? Go to hell." Ghost Execution let out a low roar. Ghost energy surged out from his body, and in the blink of an eye, the ghost energy turned into fierce ghosts that circled in the air. In less than 2 breaths of time, over 100 fierce ghosts had appeared. Tang Haoqing stomped on the ground with one foot, and clenched his fists in front of him. Then he smashed his fists on the ground with a muffled shout. Suddenly, the fist spirit burst out, and a huge column of fire shot up from the ground, shining in all directions. He spread his arms, and the column of fire covered his whole body, so that the ferocious ghosts could not get close to him. Ghost Ju smiled coldly, and his body was changing strangely. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a ferocious ghost that was 10 feet high. His 2 ghost claws moved, and instantly tore the column of fire apart. Then the ghosts rushed to Tang Haoqing, howling. Chapter 154. Leng Shiqi, who was hiding deep underground, was about to suppress the fire in his body when the ground suddenly shook. Then he heard the sound of hundreds of ghosts crying and flames exploding above him. What was even more terrifying was that 2 powerful spirit force fluctuations suddenly appeared, causing him to spit out another mouthful of blood. "There's a fight above? We can't stay here." Leng Shiqi was shocked again and quickly ran away. Otherwise, he would only get more injured. It wasn't until he was several miles away that he could no longer feel the 2 spirit force fluctuations. Only then did he feel relieved. At the same time, he secretly cursed his bad luck. He and Fan Zhengqiu didn't do anything, yet they were inexplicably attacked. Fan Zhengqiu died on the spot, and he was seriously injured. Leng Shiqi checked his injuries. He was already injured in the battle with Chu Xinran, and now his body's condition was even worse. His entire back was charred black, and there were even a few hideous bloody wounds. It looked a bit too horrible to look at. But the more serious injuries were his internal injuries. Tang Haoqing's flame was a little strange. It was not a simple flame, but more like it was derived from some kind of fist technique. This was because Leng Shiqi could clearly feel that the residual flame in his body still contained bursts of fist force. The flames and fist energy had destroyed most of the meridians in his back. If it wasn't for the fact that he cultivated a body refining technique, his body would be much stronger than ordinary people. He would have died on the spot. Then Leng Shiqi used all his spirit force to suppress the flames and fist energy. After an entire day, he finally suppressed them. This was only suppression. He hadn't completely forced them out of his body. Fortunately, it was only a matter of time. At this point, Leng Shiqi let out a breath and wiped the dense sweat on his face. Then his eyes flashed with hatred and a desire for strength. He hated Tang Haoqing, but he also yearned for that kind of strength. Tang Haoqing only threw a punch from afar. Just a little bit of the aftershock and residual flames touched Leng Shiqi, and he was seriously injured. How powerful was that? However, Leng Shiqi knew his limits. What he needed to do now was not to hate or desire, but to heal his wounds. He returned to the ground and looked up to identify the terrain. I remember there's a small town nearby. Let's go there and rest for a few days. Xinzi Town was an ordinary town near Shangyang City. After Leng Shiqi arrived at Xinzi Town, he found an inn and shut himself in, slowly recovering from his injuries. What he didn't know was that there were more and more outsiders coming to Xinzi Town these past few days. On the 10th day, he had almost used up all of his healing pills, and his injuries had finally improved by about 70 to 80%. However, he was in a very bad mood. For the past 10 days, he had only cared about recuperating from his injuries, so his cultivation had not improved at all. The path of cultivation was like rowing a boat against the current. If one did not advance, one would fall behind. These 10 days could be considered as a waste of time. He walked out of the room with a sullen face and prepared to pay the bill. Coincidentally, 2 people came to check out behind him, and they were whispering to each other. Leng Shiqi sensed that these 2 people were only in the pure spirit realm, and they looked to be in their 30s. They were obviously spirit cultivators with poor aptitudes. At first, he did not pay much attention to them, but by chance he seemed to have heard the words City Lord's Mansion. His heart skipped a beat, and he channeled his spirit energy to his ears, quietly listening to their conversation. "Brotherly, is the news reliable?" "Brother Wang, don't worry. I went out last night to inquire, and this news was released by Shangyang City's City Lord's Mansion. It can't be fake. But I remember that Marquis Buyuan died a few hundred years ago under the siege of the imperial court. Where did the tomb come from?" "Heh, those high and mighty people are all very powerful. How can we speculate about them? Since the City Lord's Mansion has released the news of finding Marquis Buyuan's tomb, why don't we try our luck? Who knows, maybe we'll find it. When the time comes, we'll definitely be rewarded." "Fine, since I have nothing to do, I'll accompany Brotherly on this trip." "Ha ha ha, good brother." At this time, Leng Shiqi also finished paying the bill. It was the 2 people's turn, and they stopped talking. Leng Shiqi thoughtfully walked out of the inn. As soon as he left the inn, he immediately noticed that there were many more people in the town than when he first came, and many of them seemed to be in a hurry. Could it be that they're all here for Marquis Buyuan's tomb? However, he was very unfamiliar with the words Marquis Buyuan, but he had seen the word tomb on a broken map not long ago. After that, Leng Shiqi bought a few books in town that recorded the history of Shangyang City. The Marquis Buyuan was a person who lived more than 300 years ago. At that time, Shangyang City was not as desolate as it was now. Although it was not very big, it was very famous, and the merchants that came and went were very dense. The most important reason was that Shangyang City had a Marquis Buyuan. It was said that Marquis Buyuan was born in an ordinary family in Shangyang City. Although he became a spirit cultivator, his cultivation talent was very ordinary. He was able to earn a position in the city guards, enough to support his family. Later, when the Thunderblaze dynasty and the newly proclaimed Northern Wei dynasty went to war, Marquis Buyuan resolutely joined the army. But he did not expect that from then on, he would start a glorious life. Marquis Buyuan was not afraid of death on the battlefield, and he repeatedly performed miraculous deeds. His position was quickly promoted, and he was valued by the higher-ups. He was passed down a high-grade cultivation technique, and his cultivation began to advance by leaps and bounds. Finally, when the war ended, he used his illustrious achievements to rise from a common soldier to the title of Marquis Buyuan. It could be said that his future was limitless. However, what no one expected was that he actually gave up his military position and returned to Shangyang City with only the title of Marquis. It could be said that he gave up his great future. Many people found it hard to understand. Later on, something even more incomprehensible happened. About 20 years later, someone secretly reported that Marquis Buyuan was secretly preparing a large amount of money and weapons. It seemed that he was up to no good. The dynasty immediately sent people to investigate, and it turned out that it was true. The unparalleled Marquis Buyuan was actually up to no good. And the evidence was conclusive. Suddenly, the world was in an uproar. Not long after, the dynasty sent people to encircle Marquis Buyuan's residence, and Marquis Buyuan died in battle. From then on, Shangyang City was implicated and slowly declined. After reading this, Leng Shiqi felt that something was wrong, but he could not say what it was. After all, it was someone from more than 300 years ago. Who could know the truth? But at this time he was a little hesitant. He now had two choices. One was to return to the Shadowwind Ridge to submit the mission, and then cultivate for a while. In the past few days, he found that the bottleneck of the sixth layer of the spirit transformation realm had loosened. It would not be long before he could break through. The other choice was to go and see the so-called tomb of Marquis Buyuan. Maybe he could fish in troubled waters and fish for some benefits. After pondering for a while, Leng Shiqi made a decision. Chapter 155. Leng Shiqi decided to look for an opportunity. His mission only needed to be completed within a month. There was still half a month left, so he was not in a hurry. Moreover, after handing in the mission, he would still have to cultivate and carry out missions step by step. If this continued, when would he be able to break through to Celestial Realm 4? Leng Shiqi did not forget the mission Wuxia gave him, which was to break through to the Spiritual Pulse Realm within a year. It was definitely impossible to do it just by cultivating hard. The news of Boiwanhe's tomb had attracted so many people, so it did not seem fake. This could be considered an opportunity. Moreover, it was near him. It would be a pity if he did not give it a try. Most importantly, he had been provoked by Tang Haoqing. At that time, Tang Haoqing had only casually thrown a light punch, but that little bit of aftershock had seriously injured Leng Shiqi. What kind of powerful strength was that? This also made Leng Shiqi deeply feel how weak he was. Even if he thought that his talent was extraordinary, his comprehension was high, and he had the system as a cheat, his potential could be said to be extremely high. However, potential was only potential, not strength. Therefore, Leng Shiqi was also very anxious to improve his strength, and Boiwanhe's tomb was an opportunity. His only concern was that it was a bit too much of a coincidence for such a thing to happen so soon after the change in Shangyang City. However, since the news came from Shangyang City, there would definitely be more accurate and detailed information in the city. Moreover, he had sources of information in the city. Half a day later, when Mao Kai saw Leng Shiqi appear, he was also a little surprised. He immediately asked, "Emissary, did you accept another mission near Shangyang City?" Leng Shiqi shook his head and said, "It's a long story. I came to you this time to ask for some information about Boiwanhe's tomb." "TSK, emissary, you want to get involved too?" Mao Kai showed a stunned expression at this time. Leng Shiqi frowned and said, "Can't I?" Mao Kai subconsciously said, "You really can't." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw that Leng Shiqi looked a little unhappy. He immediately explained, "Ambassador, you may not know the rules of our sect. All the disciples of the Blood-Clothed Pavilion are not allowed to participate in the fight for natural treasures." Why is that? Leng Shiqi was really surprised this time. What kind of strange rule was this? Mao Kai explained, "Well, this is about the nature of our sect. The Blood-Robed Pavilion was an assassin force, and countless people had died at their hands. He had even killed the disciples and elders on the world sect ranking. He had even killed the sect leader. In this world, there are as many forces that want to destroy our sect as there are hairs on an ox. Over the past 1,000 years, there have been countless forces that have risen and fallen. Why is our sect still able to exist and even be ranked as one of the 7 invincible sects? This is not only because our sect is strong, but also because we know our own situation and position. The Blood-Robe Pavilion was actually a sword in the hands of all the sects in the world. A sword hidden in the darkness. Those things that could not be done openly were left to this sword to do. Therefore, even if the Blood-Robed Pavilion was hated by countless people, no one mentioned that they wanted to destroy our sect because everyone needed this sword. Therefore, since the establishment of our sect, There has been a rule that we are not allowed to participate in any grudges or vendettas, nor are we allowed to fight for natural treasures, secret opportunities, and so on. Leng Shiqi quietly listened to Mao Kai's words and understood the reason behind it. He also agreed with the blood-robed pavilion's approach. Since the blood-robed pavilion was a sword in the hands of all the sects in the world, it could only be an honest sword. Therefore, the disciples of the blood-robed pavilion had to maintain absolute neutrality and only act according to the mission. They could not be mixed with any personal grudges. It was no wonder that when he wanted to assassinate Chu Xinran last time, Mao Kai had tried his best to stop him. Once the blood-robed pavilion was tainted with karma, it would probably lead to a disaster in an instant. However, Leng Shiqi was not very interested in this. Even in the blood-robed pavilion, not many people recognized him. As long as he disguised himself well, who would know that he was from the blood-robed pavilion? Therefore he said directly, "I know. Give me the information." "Mao Kai," he immediately said with a sad face. "Emissary, I've been talking for a long time, but you didn't listen to me at all." "Don't worry, I'll hide my identity well. Besides, I'm the one who broke the rules. If the higher-ups blame me, I'll bear the responsibility alone. No, I broke the rules by giving you the information. I'll definitely be severely punished." Mao Kai shook his head. Leng Shiqi smiled gently and said, "Anyway, you've already broken the rules once last time. What are you afraid of?" "Shoo." Mao Kai hurriedly made a shushing gesture and said in a low voice, "Emissary, please keep your voice down. Last time, I didn't know Chu Xinran's true strength and identity. You have to know that he's a dark thunder guard. Even if I kneel in front of you, I won't give you the information." "Is that so?" Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows and said, "In fact, your information was not of any substantial use. It even almost cost me my life because of the wrong information. Also, you took 10 spirit stones from me. I haven't had the time to settle this with you yet." Leng Shiqi's tone became colder as he spoke. Mao Kai immediately shivered. This, I didn't know the truth back then. Humph, as long as you give me the information about Buyu and Ho, I'll forget about what happened before. Mao Kai's face instantly drooped and his eyes were full of hesitation. Leng Shiqi saw his hesitation and knew there was a way. He continued, "Mao Kai, do you know that there are only 0 or infinite chances of breaking the rules? Anyway, you've already broken the rules once. What's the harm in breaking it again? Besides, only the heavens and earth know about this. As long as you and I don't say anything, the sect will definitely not know about this." Mao Kai heard this and felt that it made sense. He coughed dryly and glanced over from time to time. Leng Shiqi saw this and smiled inwardly. He knew that this matter was settled. He took out a spirit stone and placed it on the table. Mao Kai immediately ran into the room to get the information. "Emissary, I've brought all the information about Buyu and Ho, but I don't know if I should say something." Mao Kai took out a small stack of files and asked with a solemn expression. Leng Shiqi nodded and said, "Go ahead." "Emissary, not long after Chu Xinran's death, there was news in Shangyang City that Buyu and Ho had secretly built a tomb nearby. This is too much of a coincidence. I also heard that a few days ago, the famous coroner Master Zhuang Qingping entered the city lord mansion. I'm afraid there's something fishy about this." Leng Shiqi heard this and said seriously, "Don't worry, I've already thought about this matter. I'll be careful. By the way, you must have information about Qingkou Hall. Give it to me." Mao Kai. Chapter 156. Leng Shiqi carefully studied the information related to Boiwanhe's tomb. First of all, the historical record was similar to what he had read before. The only difference was the ending. In reality, Boiwanhe did not die in the hands of Dynasty. Instead, he escaped and disappeared. Later on, Dynasty's people raided the Marquis residence, but they did not find any wealth or weapons. According to the testimony of the people in the Marquis residence, Marquis Buyuan had once built a magnificent mausoleum for himself. There were treasures hidden in it, and he left a map for his descendants. Unfortunately, Boiwanhe's family had been killed and he had no descendants. No one knew where the map was. Lung Shiqi discovered a crucial point in the information. There was a map in the mansion that recorded the location of Boiwanhe's tomb. However, it was incomplete. The map was divided into 4 parts. The mansion had 1, the Chinko clan and the Three Swords gang had 1 each. As for the last one, no one knew who had it. Thinking of the map, Lung Shiqi immediately took out a tattered map from his mustard seed bag. It was the one he had found on Chu Shinran. This should be the one in the mansion. No, that's not right. According to the information, there's still a map in the mansion. I'm afraid the map I have is Bao Pingyi's. At that moment, Lung Shiqi suddenly recalled that he only had time to take Bao Pingyi's head after killing him. He did not take anything from him. Presumably, Bao Pingyi had kept the map fragment with him. Later on, Bao Pingyi's body fell into Chu Shinran's hands. Naturally, he took everything. He did not expect the map to fall into Lung Shiqi's hands. It seems like the map in the mansion's hands was brought by Chu Shinran. Perhaps he came to Shangyang City for Boiwanhe's tomb. Since the Chinko clan has a map too, it might be a breakthrough, Lung Shiqi said to himself softly. When night fell, he went to the Chinko clan's headquarters. It had been more than 10 days since Lung Shiqi assassinated Bao Pingyi. These days, it could be said that Chinko Hall was at its most prosperous. This was especially true for the hall master of Chinko Hall, Go Huarong. At first, his Chinko Hall and the Three Sabers Association could be said to be evenly matched. But not long ago, the Three Swords gang had actually boarded the Heavenly Cloud Tower's ship, and had even obtained the 4 spiritual guards. These were 4 spirit transformation stage spirit cultivators from proper spirit cultivation sects. His subordinates, who were born in the wilderness, could not be compared to him. Therefore, Go Huarong felt a strong sense of urgency. Coincidentally, it was at that time that the new city lord of Upper Sun City, Chu Xian Ran, secretly found him. Both sides' target was the strongest Three Blades Guild, so they immediately hit it off and secretly joined hands. After that, things went very smoothly. The Three Blades Society was destroyed, and Chu Xian Ran died inexplicably. Go Huarong seized the opportunity to take over 70% of the streets in Shangyang City. Countless people fought to join Chinko Hall. The current Chinko Hall had already become the well-deserved overlord of Shangyang City. Therefore, in the past few days, Go Huarong had been holding a banquet with countless guests. Even at night, it was still very lively. Lung Shiqi disguised himself as a hunchbacked old man and walked over. When he reached the door, he was stopped by 2 gang members. Who is it? Do you have an invitation? Lung Shiqi used a voice-changing technique to imitate a hoarse voice and said, I want to see your hall master. Give this letter to him, and he will see me. As he spoke, he took out a letter. The gatekeeper took it and said, I will go and inform him. Not long after, the gatekeeper hurried back, followed by an elegant middle-aged man. The gatekeeper said in a low voice, It's this old man. The middle-aged man cupped his fists and said, Ha ha ha. I am the steward of Chinko Hall, Shui Wenli. Old mister, please come in. The hall master is waiting in the side hall. Lung Shiqi followed him into the main hall. Along the way, they exchanged a few pleasantries. He only revealed that his surname was Liu, and he didn't say anything else. Lung Shiqi followed Shui Wenli to the side hall. Sure enough, there was a man in green standing there. He looked to be in his 50s or 60s. This was the hall master of Chinko Hall, Go Huarong. As soon as Go Huarong saw Lung Shiqi, he smiled and said, Brother Liu, please sit. Lung Shiqi sat down unceremoniously and said bluntly, Hall Master Go must already know why I am here. So the last piece of the map is with Brother Liu. If you and I work together, it means that we have half of the map. Finding Boiwanhe's tomb is just around the corner. However, the map is too important. I still need to take a look at it to be at ease. I wonder if Brother Liu can borrow it to take a look? Lung Shiqi sneered in his heart. Previously, he had put a rubbing of the map in the envelope. Therefore, he believed that as long as Go Huarong saw the envelope, he would definitely meet him. Then he took out the old map from his sleeve. However, he didn't give it to Go Huarong. Instead, he showed it to him and put it away. Go Huarong's eyes lit up as he looked at the map. Although he only saw it a few times, he could clearly tell that it was real. This was because the map's material, color, age, and ink marks were exactly the same as his own map. He had studied this map for many years. It could be said that the map was so detailed that he could detect the slightest difference. After confirming the map, the smile on Go Huarong's face grew wider. Haha, Brother Lu didn't deceive me. Brother Lu, if you have any conditions, please state them. Lung Shiqi pondered for a moment and said, I can give the map to Hall Master Go. First, I want 200 spirit stones and a third-stage spiritual skill. After finding Boiwanhe's tomb, I want to enter it with the Qingkou Hall. I want to choose 3 items first. Hearing this, Go Huarong's face sank and he fell into deep thought. Lung Shiqi was not in a hurry. He sat there leisurely and waited. He knew that Go Huarong would definitely agree. The reason was that Go Huarong had always thought that the city lord's mansion had 2 maps. If he wanted to be the first to find Boiwanhe's tomb, he would have to choose to cooperate with Lung Shiqi. Furthermore, the conditions he proposed were not excessive. 200 spirit stones was not a small amount for an ordinary spirit cultivator, but it was nothing for the Qingkou Hall that had been in Shangyang City for more than 20 years. Although a third-stage spiritual skill was precious, he did not insist on what type it was. This gave Go Huarong a lot of leeway. As for the last condition, it was an empty promise. Go Huarong would definitely agree. Sure enough, after a short while Go Huarong said, We'll do as Brother Lu says. Lung Shiqi smiled lightly and said, I believe that Hall Master Go's decision is wise and will not go back on his words. Go Huarong said proudly, Of course. Brother Lu, you can go out and ask around. I, Go Huarong, have established the Qingkou Hall for nearly 20 years because of trust. Chapter 157. Over the next few days, a large number of outsiders poured into Shangyang City every day, filling the streets, inns, and taverns. The city, which had been in decline for a long time, became lively again. Most of these people came for Boiwanhe's tomb, while a small number came purely to watch the fun. Recently, news about Boiwanhe's tomb had spread all over the place, and it had become a hot topic among the residents. Today, a group of 10 people walked into the Spirit Cultivator commercial street. They were all wearing light blue robes embroidered with green clouds. Look, who are those people? I don't know, but I can tell they're disciples of a Spirit Cultivator sect. They're not people we can mess with. Go, stay away. Aren't they from Heavenly Cloud Tower? They're from Heavenly Cloud Tower. Look at the leader. He's one of the deacon elders of Heavenly Cloud Tower, Jinyu. He's a spirit pulse expert of the 4 realms of Skyman. The surrounding people were slightly shocked. After all, 99% of the people in this group would never be able to enter the spirit pulse realm in their lives. Their eyes were filled with envy and awe. In the main hall of Qingkou Hall, Go Huarong sat on a chair while Shui Wenli paced slowly. From time to time, someone would quietly come in, hand over an envelope and leave. Go Huarong asked, Have you found out about that person? Shui Wenli was stunned after reading the contents of the letter. His face darkened, and he paused for a moment before saying, Not yet, but my subordinates reported that people from Heavenly Cloud Tower just entered the city. Heavenly Cloud Tower. Go Huarong was shocked and couldn't sit still. Yes, many people saw them. The leader is the Deacon Elder of Heavenly Cloud Tower, Jinyu, a Spirit Pulse Realm cultivator. Spirit Pulse Realm. These 3 words exploded in Go Huarong's mind. They didn't even have a Spirit Pulse Realm cultivator in Shangyang City. Now one had suddenly appeared, and he was the Deacon Elder of a third-rate Spirit Cultivator sect. Needless to say, Jinyu must be here for Boiwanhe's tomb. Go Huarong asked in a deep voice. Just him. There are 9 other elite disciples of Heavenly Cloud Tower. It's worth mentioning that Jigu, one of the 4 spiritual guards who was in charge of protecting Baopingyi, is also among them. 9. Hearing this, Go Huarong's face turned even uglier. He had already sent out all his gang members to search for clues in the vicinity of Shangyang City according to the map. He had also made some progress, so it could be said that he had a slight advantage. However, so what if he had the upper hand? Not to mention the others, just the 10 people from Heavenly Cloud Tower alone would be enough to turn his Qingkou Hall upside down. Although he had a few spirit transformation realm leaders under him, how could those people who came from the wilderness be compared to the sect disciples who had been raised since childhood? What's more, Yu Jinyu was here. Who could be his opponent? At this time, Shui Wenli said, Hall Master, should we contact Yu Jinyu? Sai, it's too late. Since we were able to get the news, the City Lord's mansion must have known long ago. Although Chu Xian Ran is dead, City Guard Commander Zhong Lin is still alive. He is now in charge of all affairs in Shangyang City, and will definitely contact Yu Jinyu as soon as possible. Go Huarong sighed slightly. But it was Chu Xian Ran who hired assassins to kill Bao Pingyi and the 4 spiritual guards. It's impossible for Heavenly Cloud Tower to cooperate with them. If you say so, then so be it. Do you have any evidence? Isn't that Ji Gu one of the 4 spiritual guards? He is the evidence. You underestimate Chu Xian Ran too much. Ji Gu must have secretly relied on the City Lord's mansion to survive until now. With him as the middleman, they will work together. What should we do? Shui Wenli was also a little anxious. Go Huarong had experienced great storms and waves, so he quickly calmed down and said, Don't worry, since the tomb of Buyuan Ho can attract Heavenly Cloud Tower, it can naturally attract other spirit cultivator sections. Send more brothers to watch the various city gates at all times. Once you find a spirit cultivator sect entering the city, you must inform me as soon as possible. We also need to find strong reinforcements. Hall Master is wise. By the way, what should we do with that old man surnamed Lu? He's just an idiot. He actually handed over the map so easily. I originally planned to kill him directly. Let's keep him first. When we find the tomb of Buyuan Ho, we'll bring him in. He's at least a spirit transformation realm cultivator. When we get the tomb, Go Huarong's eyes were filled with killing intent as he spoke. Shui Wenli immediately complimented. Hall Master is far-sighted. This subordinate admires you. However, the two of them would never have dreamed that Leng Shiqi was actually right below where they were talking. Furthermore, he had listened to every single word of their conversation without missing a single word. Before Leng Shiqi came to Qingkou Hall, he had stored a lot of dry food and water in his mustard seed bag. After reaching an agreement with Go Huarong, he pretended to leave, but in fact he sneaked back underground. He had 2 purposes. First, he could know all the information at any time. Second, he wanted to see what kind of face Go Huarong had. Today he saw that he was not a good person. The reason Leng Shiqi had directly given the map to Qingkou Hall was because it was useless to him. Qingkou Hall had a lot of people. With 2 maps, it wouldn't take long for them to find the tomb of Buyuan Ho. He also hoped that the tomb would appear soon. It would be best if it appeared within half a month. That way, he could go back and take over the mission to assassinate Bao Pingyi. However, the appearance of Heavenly Cloud Pavilion also surprised him. Buyuan Ho was indeed a very great person in the folklore, but in the end, he was just a marquis with no real power, and lived in a small city. Such a person was really nothing to a spirit cultivation sect. For example, if the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion's master and head elder joined the Thunderfire dynasty, they could easily get the title of marquis. The appearance of Heavenly Cloud Pavilion worried Leng Shiqi the most. He was afraid that his identity would be exposed. When he assassinated Bao Pingyi, he used the identity of the old man surnamed Lu. His appearance was also the same. This definitely could not escape Ji Gu's eyes. Once he dared to show up with this identity, Ji Gu would definitely recognize him. At that time, he would not have the confidence to resist the encirclement of a Spirit Pulse Realm expert and 9 Spirit Transformation Realm cultivators. It seems that it is necessary to deal with this hidden danger, Ji Gu. Leng Shiqi coldly muttered to himself, then left Qingkou Hall. When night fell, Leng Shiqi touched the vicinity of the City Lord's mansion. Then, the veins at the corner of his eyes bulged and he opened his eyes. In his vision, the world suddenly turned black and white. He carefully looked at everyone in the City Lord's mansion, as well as their spirit aura. Not long after, he locked onto a familiar aura. It was one of the 4 spirit guards, Ji Gu. Chapter 158. However, Leng Shiqi didn't act rashly because there were more than a dozen spirit transformation realm cultivators around Jigu, as well as one who was more than 10 times stronger than him. Leng Shiqi swallowed his saliva and thought, "That's Yu Jinyu, a true spirit pulse realm expert." Not long after, those people dispersed, and Yashitsugu also entered a room alone. Leng Shiqi knew that his chance had come. Jigu had been living in an abyss of suffering during this period of time. At first, he failed to protect Bao Pingyi and failed the mission. At worst, he would just return to the sect to be punished. However, he didn't think that Chu Xinran would dare to kill them. When he fell into the hands of the city guards, he thought he was dead for sure, but in the end, he became a chess piece in Chu Xinran's hands. When he returned to the sect, he was still severely punished according to Chu Xinran's instructions, but this was nothing. Later, when he learned of Chu Xinran's death, he realized what despair was and what the pain of waiting for death was. If Chu Xinran died, who would give him the antidote? Recently, he would feel intense pain in his body every once in a while. Each time it would get worse and worse. If it happened a few more times, he was afraid he would die from the pain. Just 2 days ago, Heavenly Cloud Pavilion learned about Marquis Buyuan's tomb, and immediately sent people to Shangyang City. Because Jigu had stayed in Shangyang City before, he was familiar with the place, so he was brought along to make up for his mistake. Jigu naturally wanted to come to Shangyang City. Only here would he have a chance to find the antidote. Although the chances were slim, it was better than waiting for death. At this moment, he walked into the room arranged for him by the City Lord Mansion. He felt physically and mentally exhausted. The pressure of running for a long time and slowly approaching death almost made him collapse. Jigu whispered, "Sai, I don't know if I can find the antidote." Perhaps it was because he had been wandering on the edge of death, but at this moment, Jigu suddenly felt a strong killing intent lock onto him. He immediately turned around and was about to shout, but he didn't expect a dagger to be pressed against his throat. Yashitsugu was horrified. When did this person appear? However, he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He could only look at the person behind him from the corner of his eyes. He felt that the person looked familiar, but he couldn't recall who it was. The person who made the move was naturally Leng Shiqi. Originally, Leng Shiqi wanted to kill Yashitsugu with his full power, but after hearing Yashitsugu's words, he changed his mind. Wuxia was looking for an antidote. What antidote was he looking for? Leng Shiqi recalled that Mao Kai had mentioned to him that Chu Xinran deliberately let one person go in order to frame him for killing Bao Pingyi and the 4 spiritual guards. With Chu Xinran's methods, how could he let Yoshiko go so easily? Leng Shiqi quickly guessed that Chu Xinran most likely used poison to control Wuxia. Chu Xinran's belongings were all with the Leng Shiqi. He rummaged through the mustard seed bag and found a bottle of poison called ant-devouring poison pill. After swallowing this poison, the whole body would be in severe pain every once in a while, as if countless ants were gnawing on it. And every time it happened, it would be more painful than the last. If the antidote wasn't taken within a month, the person would eventually die from the endless pain. Coincidentally, he also had the antidote. So Leng Shiqi changed his mind about assassinating Wuxia. He whispered, "Wuxia, right? We're old acquaintances." As soon as Leng Shiqi spoke, Wuxia immediately remembered who this person was. He was the assassin who killed Bao Pingyi. Although that person only said one sentence to Chu Xinran, Wuxia still remembered it clearly. However, he did not expect that one day he would also become the target of assassination. Thinking of this, he smiled dejectedly and said, "If you want to kill me, then kill me. In any case, I don't have many days left to live. Just give me a quick death." Leng Shiqi took out a pill and said with a sigh, "Well, since you want to die, then this antidote will be wasted. What a pity." When Wuxia saw the pill, he seemed to have guessed what it was. His eyes suddenly lit up. An endless hope of survival rose in his heart. He hurriedly asked, "What antidote is this?" Seeing this, Leng Shiqi smiled and said, "Naturally, it's the antidote to the ant-devouring poison pill in your body." Oh. Wuxia's breathing instantly became heavier. He trembled and said, "Really? Hey, I won't lie to you. If you don't believe me, you can take one now." Lung Shiqi said as he handed the pill to Yoshia's mouth. Yoshia hesitated for a moment, but immediately opened his mouth and swallowed it. Then he closed his eyes. After a few breaths, he suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were full of joy. He could clearly feel that the poison in his body was rapidly fading. The antidote was real. However, Yoshia knew very well that the other party would not give him the antidote for free, so he said, "What do you want? Just tell me." Lung Shiqi took back his dagger and sat down on a chair next to him. He said, "No wonder Chu Xinran chose you. You're really a smart man. The ant-devouring poison pill is not so easy to detoxify. You must take 3 antidotes in a row within a month to completely detoxify the poison. The remaining 2 antidotes are in my hands." Yoshia's eyes flashed when he heard this. He had understood what Lung Shiqi meant. The other party wanted to use the poison to control him, just like Chu Xinran did. At this point, Yoshia couldn't help but feel a little helpless, but in order to survive he had to answer, "Yoshia understands. I'll do my best to fulfill your orders." Lung Shiqi knew that it was done. He said in a serious voice, "You only need to do 3 things. First, don't expose my identity. Second, tell me the information about your heavenly cloud tower. Third, do one thing for me after entering Buyuan Hoji's mausoleum. As for what it is, we'll talk about it later. As long as you agree to these 3 conditions, I can give you another antidote now. I'm much more sincere than Chu Xinran." Yoshia began to twitch when he heard this. He could fulfill the first condition of Lung Shiqi, but the second condition was tantamount to leaking the intelligence of the sect. If he was caught, his cultivation would be abolished and he would be expelled from the sect, or he would be executed directly. And the third condition, if the other party asked him to attack his fellow sect members, what should he do? Lung Shiqi seemed to see what Yoshia was worried about, so he said, "Don't worry, the information I want is only the basic information about your heavenly cloud tower. I can get it by asking around. It's just that my legs are not good enough, so I don't want to make a few more trips. As for the last condition, I will never let you do anything that will make the heavens angry." Lung Shiqi's words finally dispelled Yoshia's worries. He nodded and said, "I promise you." Chapter 159. Lung Shiqi quietly left the city lord's mansion without anyone noticing. Not only did he successfully solve the hidden danger of his identity being exposed, but he also took control of a spy in the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion. It could be said that this trip was not in vain. I really didn't expect that Chu Xinran's method would end up as a chess piece in my hands. It's very interesting. After solving the hidden danger here, Lung Shiqi continued to return to the underground of the Qingkou Hall, and waited for news. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, another 4 days had passed. In these 4 days, there were not as many people entering Shangyang City as before, but it caused waves of excitement because spirit cultivator sects kept appearing one after another. The third-rate sects, Haoyi sect and Luoyu Manor, both came. Moreover, the leaders were all spirit pulse realm experts, which caused a wave of commotion. In addition, there were a few demonic cultivators of unknown origins that appeared in Shangyang City. Demonic cultivators were a special kind of spirit cultivator. The cultivation methods they cultivated and the spirit techniques they used were mostly cruel and bloody. Moreover, most demonic cultivators had bad tempers, so they were not liked by many. On this day, Go Huarong was anxiously waiting for something in his room. He rarely showed such an anxious expression, so it was obvious that he was waiting for something or someone important. Not long after, Shui Wenli ran in with a head full of sweat, but his face was full of joy. "Hall Master, I found it, I found it. The entrance to Marquis Buyuan's mausoleum is in the flat roof." "Ha ha ha ha." Hearing this, Go Huarong laughed loudly and said, "Good, good, good. This time, you've done a great job. In the future, when I'm old, I can rest assured that the Qingkou Hall will be in your hands." Shui Wenli was immediately shocked and said, "I don't dare to take credit. Besides, Hall Master will break through to the Spirit Pulse realm in the future and prolong your life. Hall Master, you're still middle-aged." "Ha ha ha, okay, but don't make this matter public. Let the brothers of the Spirit Pulse realm, and above leave the city in batches. Before anyone else finds out, we'll take action first. Go Huarong ordered. Yes, but when do we inform Luoyu Manor, and the old man surnamed Lu? Go Huarong thought for a moment and said, there's no rush. Let's arrange for our people to go out and make preparations. We'll inform them the day after tomorrow. At this moment, a voice came from outside. Hall Master, that Lu guy is here again. He's asking to see you. What? Go Huarong and Shui Wenli looked at each other in confusion. They had just discovered the location of the mausoleum, and that person had come knocking on their door. This was too much of a coincidence. However, they didn't suspect anything. After all, only the two of them knew about this in the city. Go Huarong replied, tell him to wait for me in the side hall. At this moment, Lung Shiqi was sitting in the side hall and slowly drinking tea. The best news for him in the past few days was that he had broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm. He was already at the peak of the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm when he was in the dark erosion spring. Later, he focused on cultivating the 7 fiend blood slaughter art, and his spirit force became even more refined. Originally, he could have broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm long ago. Unfortunately, he had been rushing to the Donglin County branch and carrying out missions for more than half a month. When he was preparing to return to the branch to cultivate in seclusion to break through, he inexplicably suffered an unexpected disaster, causing him to be seriously injured. In the past few days, his injuries had finally healed, and his cultivation had naturally broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm. It just so happened that he was about to enter Boiwanhu's tomb. It was naturally a good thing that his cultivation had broken through, and he was more confident. At this moment, he had nothing to do, so he opened the system and looked at his information. Name, Lung Shiqi Lu Xingji Cultivation, 6th level of the Spirit Transformation Realm Cultivation Method. Rank 3 Cultivation Method. Moonlight Cloud Manual Rank 3 Cultivation Method. Beast Origin Demonic Technique, incomplete. Rank 4 Cultivation Method. 7 Fiend Blood Slaughter Art, incomplete. Bloodline. Spirit Skill. Rank 2 Spirit Skill. Forest Front Finger complete. Rank 2 Spirit Skill. Poison Fire Palm complete. Rank 3 Spirit Skill. Channel Charging Sword Chi complete. Rank 3 Spirit Skill. Floating Spirit Steps complete. Rank 3 Spirit Skill. Devouring Light Flying Dagger complete. System Coins. 41. When Lung Shiqi saw the last Devouring Light Flying Dagger complete, he laughed in his heart. This spirit skill was actually one of the rewards for giving the map to Go Huarong. At that time, he asked for a rank 3 spirit skill, but he did not deliberately specify what type. Thus, Go Huarong thought himself clever, and gave him a hidden weapon spirit skill that was even rarer than a movement spirit skill. This type of spirit skill was rare not because it was precious, but because it was very difficult to cultivate and was not very useful. Generally speaking, in the realm below the 4 levels of the Sky Realm, hidden weapons were indeed somewhat useful. Whether it was for sneak attacks or to buy time for oneself to escape, it was a good choice. Thus, many spirit cultivators from all walks of life would more or less carry some hidden weapons. However, as one's cultivation increased, the use of hidden weapons became less and less. For example, a Spirit Pulse Realm expert who had already opened the Spirit Sea could release Spirit Chi from their body, and had a protective Spirit Chi. Ordinary hidden weapons would not be able to injure them at all, even if it was a hidden weapon spirit skill. Thus, almost no one was willing to cultivate this type of spirit skill. Go Huarong treated it as trash and threw it to Lung Shiqi. However, no matter how difficult it was to cultivate this spirit skill, it was not a problem for Lung Shiqi. Now his devouring light flying dagger, complete, was also at the realm of perfection. In addition, he had not been idle for the past 2 days. He took the time to go to the Spirit Cultivator Business Street and bought 3 flying daggers at a high price. Each of them was a rank 2 spirit artifact. This could be considered one of his trump cards. At this time, Lung Shiqi heard footsteps and stopped thinking. He picked up the teacup and continued to drink tea. Brother Lu, does my tea taste good? Go Huarong's voice sounded. Lung Shiqi put down the teacup and said politely, "Good tea, good tea." Go Huarong laughed heartily and said, "Haha, as long as it tastes good. That's right. Why did Brother Lu come here today?" Lung Shiqi said casually, It's nothing. I just want to ask about the tomb." Go Huarong's eyes flashed and said, "Brother Lu can rest assured. With our 2 maps, I believe that you will find the tomb in a few days. To be honest, I still have some trivial matters to attend to. May I ask if Hall Master Go can give me a more precise time? It's not that I'm evading, but this kind of thing is hard to predict. It might take 10 days to half a month to find it, or it might be found tomorrow. Brother Lu, don't be anxious. Why don't you stay in the residence for a few days? If there is any news, you can inform Brother Lu at any time." Lung Shiqi thought about it and nodded his head in agreement. Go Huarong sneered in his heart and clapped his hands. "Come, arrange the best room for Brother Lu." Chapter 160. On the morning of the 3rd day, someone knocked on Lung Shiqi's door. Outside was a person dressed as a servant. When he saw Lung Shiqi come out, he bowed and said, "Senior Lu, the hall master invites you over. He said he has something to discuss." Lung Shiqi already knew what was going on, and immediately followed him to the main hall of the Qingkou Hall. At this time, there were more than 20 people in the main hall. Almost all of them were spirit cultivators of the spirit transformation realm. They were divided into 3 groups and stood clearly separated. On one side were the original leaders of the Qingkou Hall. They stood behind Go Huarong. On the other side were a few spirit cultivators dressed strangely. Lung Shiqi guessed that they were rogue cultivators recruited by the Qingkou Hall. As for the last group, there were 11 people wearing red robes. Each of them had a white feather embroidered on their shoulders. They were from the 3rd-rate Luoyu Manor. Once the Luoyu Manor entered the city, Go Huarong invited them over. It was unknown what method he used to convince the Luoyu Manor to join forces with them. Lung Shiqi was the last person to arrive. Go Huarong saw him and said, "This is Brother Lu. I gathered everyone here today to tell you a great piece of news." "A great piece of news? Hehe, let me guess. What are you guessing for? Even if you think with your knees, you know that Bu Yuanho's tomb has been found." The rogue cultivators immediately shouted excitedly, causing the disciples of the Luoyu Manor to feel disgusted. Go Huarong stretched out his hand and gestured for them to quiet down. He continued, "Yes, we have found the location of Bu Yuanho's tomb. However, everyone here must not spread this news. After we are ready, we will immediately set off for the tomb." At this time, an elegant person sitting next to Go Huarong spoke. "Hall Master Go, isn't it too ostentatious for us to leave the city with such fanfare?" The person who spoke was the leader of the Luoyu Manor, Luo Xiuwen of the spiritual pulse realm. His cultivation was at the top of the group, and he was also Go Huarong's thigh. Go Huarong immediately smiled and said, "That is indeed the case. Originally, this Go planned to let everyone disguise themselves and leave the city. But this Go thought about it. Wouldn't that damage the reputation of Luoyu Manor? Forget it. Even if others find out, it doesn't matter. After all, we've already taken the initiative." Luo Xiuwen glanced at Go Huarong expressionlessly. At that moment, Go Huarong felt an invisible pressure pressing down on his heart like a mountain, making him a little breathless. Luo Xiuwen said calmly, "It's best if Hall Master Go doesn't use such petty tricks in the future. Inferior." Although his tone was very calm, it gave people the feeling that a volcano was about to erupt. Yes, I was muddle-headed." Go Huarong immediately nodded his head like a hammer and shouted, "Everyone, split up and leave the city." Not long after, Lung Shiqi followed the few individual cultivators out of the city. They did not disguise themselves because no one paid much attention to them. Nowadays, there were countless individual cultivators coming and going in Shangyang City every day. It was impossible for everyone to be on guard. After they left the city, they rushed in the direction that Go Huarong said. They were not stingy with their spiritual power and traveled day and night. They finally arrived at their destination at noon the next day, Flat Top Hill. It was a low hill. The top of the hill was bare, with only a few weeds growing in the cracks of the rocks. It looked very desolate. One of the people in the crowd said in a strange tone, "There's a tomb here? Or Master Ho's tomb? What a joke. Even commoners won't bury themselves in this barren land." "It's none of your business. Do you think you've become a master just because you've read 2 books on feng shui?" Another person immediately refuted. "What do you know? Enough, what are you arguing about? There's movement over there. Maybe it's the people from Qingkou Hall. Let's go and take a look." Then Leng Shiqi and these people went around from the side and saw a large group of people busy with something. When they got close, Wen Shui greeted them politely. "Heroes, you must be tired from your journey. Please rest here for a while. The tomb is about to be opened. When the hall master and the others arrive, we can go in and explore." Leng Shiqi and the others nodded and went to the nearby tents to recover their spiritual power. Leng Shiqi found an empty corner and quietly opened his supercilious eyes to explore the interior of the tomb. However, something happened that shocked him. He could not see through the walls of the tomb. Leng Shiqi was shocked. His supercilious eyes had an extremely strong ability to see through things. At this time, he could only see through some sand and stones on the surface. Then he was blocked by a thick wall. This tomb of Boiwanhu is really not simple. I'm afraid there's something like an isolation array inside. Leng Shiqi thought silently. In the end, he could only close his supercilious eyes and go back to recover his spiritual power. In the afternoon, people from Qingkou Hall and Luoyu Manor arrived one after another. As soon as Go Huarong arrived, Wen Shui immediately said something. Go Huarong's face showed some joy. Then he walked over and said loudly, "Everyone, the door of the tomb is about to open. We have the advantage. After entering the tomb, as long as we get the tomb, I will fulfill my promise." However, just as he finished speaking, there were sounds of footsteps behind him. Judging by the sound, there were many people. What's going on? Go Huarong and the others' faces changed. Everyone hurried forward and saw a group of guards wearing silver light armor rushing over in an orderly manner. Behind them were dozens of loose cultivators, and more than half of them were people. At the front of the light armor guards, there were 10 spirit cultivators from Heavenly Cloud Tower. These people were from the City Lord Mansion. The leader was the commander of the city guards, Zhong Lin, who was the temporary city lord. He was burly, wearing silver armor and holding a huge sword. He was looking at Go Huarong with a cold smile. Beside him was the deacon elder of Heavenly Cloud Tower, Yu Jinyu, who was staring straight at Luo Xiuwen. In his eyes, among so many people, only Luo Xiuwen was his opponent. Go Huarong's face was gloomy as he shouted, "Zhong Lin, how did you know about this place?" Zhong Lin's deep voice sounded, "Of course someone told me." As soon as he said that, Go Huarong looked left and right. At this moment, 3 words appeared in his mind. "There's a traitor." He was furious. "Damn it, if I find out who leaked the news, I'll tear him into pieces." At this moment, there was a loud boom from the side. Wen Shui ran to Go Huarong and shouted, "Hall Master, it's open. The cave entrance is open." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Zhong Lin, the city guards, and the people from Heavenly Cloud Tower. He was stunned. Chapter 161. In front of Boiwanhu's mausoleum, Qingkou Hall and the city guards were confronting each other. Go Huarong's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He knew that there must be a traitor on his side. Zhong Lin only came today, which meant that he had just learned the news. That excluded Qingkou Hall and the people who came the day before yesterday. The several leaders around him had been with him all the time and had no chance to pass on the news. The people of Luoyu Manor were all arrogant and disdained to leak the news at all. Then, it could only be the rogue cultivators who left the city first. The traitor must be among them. Unfortunately, there was no time for him to find the traitor. Go Huarong could only glare fiercely at the rogue cultivators. At this time, Zhong Lin spoke, "Hall Master Go, the news of Boiwanhu's mausoleum was spread by the city lord's mansion. Otherwise, even if you have the map in your hand, it would be a waste of paper. Since we're all here and the entrance is open, why don't we go in and explore together?" That sounds nice. We spent so much effort to find the mausoleum, and you want to reap the benefits with just a few words? Isn't that ridiculous? Go Huarong said unceremoniously. Zhonglin shook his head and said, Hall Master Go, if we continue to delay, I'm afraid we won't even have the chance to go in together. Go Huarong frowned when he heard this. Immediately, he thought of something and his face changed slightly. Leng Shiqi rolled his eyes and also thought of the meaning of Zhonglin's words. That was rogue cultivators. There were now a large number of rogue cultivators gathered in Shangyang City, and only a few of them were recruited by Qingkou Hall and the city lord's mansion. There were hundreds and thousands of rogue cultivators in the city. Leng Shiqi and the others disguised themselves and went out of the city in batches, so they naturally did not attract the attention of the rogue cultivators. However, the city guards went out of the city with great fanfare. No matter how stupid the rogue cultivators were, they would know that Boiwanhe's mausoleum must be here. It would not be long before a large number of rogue cultivators arrived. Those rogue cultivators might be scrupulous about the people of Tianyan Tower and Luoyu Manor, and even give some face to the city guards, but they would never give face to Qingkou Hall. Apart from that, there was another huge hidden danger, which was another third-rate sect, the Howie sect. The Howie sect didn't come into contact with any forces after entering Upper Yang City. They just stayed in the inn, and were probably on their way here. In the end, Go Huarong made a concession. However, he put forward the condition of letting the city guards enter first. At first glance, this approach seemed a little stupid. It was equivalent to giving away the initiative, but in fact it was a good idea. That was because there were bound to be some traps in the mausoleum. There might even be formations and prohibitions. The first person to enter would be equivalent to stepping on a mine. Zhonglin glanced at Yu Jinyu, who was beside him. Seeing his unapproachable look, he thought about it and agreed to Go Huarong's condition. Soon after, the people of Qingkou Hall opened up a small path. When the city guards arrived at the pitch-black entrance of the mausoleum, several dozen city guards with shields surrounded the others and stepped into the mausoleum step by step. After that, Go Huarong and Luoyu Manor entered together. Leng Shiqi was at the back of the group. He followed everyone into the legendary mausoleum of Marquis Boiwanhu without any sense of presence. As soon as he entered the mausoleum, Leng Shiqi felt a gust of cold wind. It was obviously a gentle breeze, but it made his body feel cold from the inside out. He looked up, but the mausoleum was pitch black and he couldn't see anything. Huff! Huff! At this time, torches lit up one after another in front of them. Go Huarong was obviously well prepared. With the help of the light from the torches, Leng Shiqi saw that they were in a passageway that was neither wide nor narrow. The walls on both sides of the passageway were bare. However, Leng Shiqi noticed that there were a lot of traces of heavy objects on the ground. However, these traces were not so clear over the years. Then Leng Shiqi pulled down the hood on his head, covering most of his face. Then his eyes turned blue and white as he activated Byakugan. Previously, he activated Byakugan outside the mausoleum, but it was blocked and he couldn't see the situation inside. Now that he was inside, Byakugan could see most of the layout of the mausoleum, but there were still some places that he couldn't see through. At this moment in Leng Shiqi's vision, there were several traps not far in front of this passageway, but he didn't say anything. Sure enough, after a dozen breaths, there was a ding-ding-dang-dang sound mixed with a few screams. It was the city guards walking in front who accidentally triggered the trap. Hearing this, Go Huarong sneered with a hint of schadenfreude and asked everyone to stop. After there was no sound in front of them, everyone continued to move forward. It didn't take long for them to see the ground full of arrows and the bodies of several guards. Go Huarong said coldly, "Serves you right." At this time Leng Shiqi, who was walking at the back, suddenly moved his body and leaned against the wall on the right. Because he was walking at the back, and everyone's attention was attracted by the front, no one noticed his strange move. He did this because he had already used Byakugan to discover that there was actually a trap here. However, this trap was very sinister. It wasn't activated once it was triggered, but after it was triggered a second time. This way, they could guard against the second batch of people who entered and returned. There was a soft caw sound. Someone had triggered the trap. Suddenly, the wall above the passageway suddenly split into two sides, and then countless sharp spikes fell down. What was even more terrifying was that these spikes were shining with spiritual light. Everyone was startled. Go Huarong immediately shouted, "Not good. Run." The spikes didn't cover the entire passageway, and there was still some space on both sides. Everyone immediately hid on both sides of the passageway. Unfortunately, most of these people thought that the trap had been triggered by the city guards, so they weren't too vigilant. Even though they were warned, they were still half a step too late, and finally died after being pierced by countless spikes. Go Huarong and Luo Xiaowen's faces turned pale when they saw this scene. They didn't expect such a trap, and they were caught off guard. What was worse was that this trap actually killed about 30% of the people. Among them were 2 disciples of Luo Yu Manor. All of this happened too suddenly. Even Luo Xiaowen didn't have time to do anything. Otherwise, he would have had a chance to save the 2 disciples. Now, some people had died before the tomb was found, and they had lost even more people than the city guards. They were at a disadvantage all of a sudden. Leng Shiqi also pretended to be panicked. He was still inconspicuous in the crowd. Chapter 162. The people from Qingkou Hall and Luo Yu Manor had triggered the second mechanism, which naturally attracted the attention of the city guards and Tianyin Tower. Zhong Lin had a puzzled look on his face, but a glint flashed across Yu Jinyu's eyes. She said, "So there is a mechanism that can be triggered twice. This mechanism is extremely complicated to set up. It seems like this mausoleum is not as simple as we thought." Zhong Lin said, "Elder Yu is really knowledgeable. I admire you." Yu Jinyu did not speak, and did not want to talk to him. Zhong Lin's expression stiffened, but he did not say anything. He just instructed his men to be more careful. On Leng Shiqi's side, Luo Xiaowen, who rarely spoke along the way, said unhappily, "Hall Master Go, since we have entered the mausoleum, let's split up. Luo Yu Manor will stay behind, and help Hall Master Go block the rogue cultivators who are coming." Go Huarong knew that he was going to take the thunder for Luo Yu Manor. He wanted to refuse, but he could not because he could not afford to offend Luo Xiaowen. He had to rely on him. This was the difference in strength. It was also the huge difference between a small gang and a spirit cultivator sect. Go Huarong had no choice but to nod his head with a grim expression. Next, Qingkou Hall and the loose cultivators they recruited walked in front while the remaining 9 cultivators from Fallen Feathers Manor walked behind them. This time, every one of them took 1 step at a time, moving with extreme caution. Leng Shiqi had a headache. Originally, he was at the back and could use the supercilious eyes to observe more. Now that he was in the middle, especially with Luo Xiaowen behind him, he did not dare to make any small moves. He was afraid that the Spirit Pulse Realm Master would notice something. Then they triggered 1 or 2 second mechanisms in the passage. But because everyone was very careful this time, only a few rogue cultivators died. At the end of the passage was a huge tomb chamber. It was so big that people mistook it for a square. When Leng Shiqi and the rest arrived, they saw the city guards standing neatly at the side. Beside them were people from Tianyin Tower, and some rogue cultivators. Zhong Lin heard the noise and turned to look. When he saw that many people from Qingkou Hall had died, he felt a sense of relief. But his face was still very serious. Not only him, but Go Huarong, Luo Xiaowen, and Leng Shiqi also had grave expressions. This was because there were over 1,000 humanoid things standing in this huge tomb. These things looked no different from ordinary people, but they were all lifeless like statues. Their eyes were also staring straight ahead, which was a bit creepy. What was even stranger was that these people were all wearing armor and holding spears in their hands. They were like a group of Yin soldiers. Luo Xiaowen said softly, "Could this be a corpse puppet?" "Does Mr. Luo know what these things are?" Go Huarong asked tentatively. Luo Xiaowen did not hide anything and said, "I've seen it in a secret scroll in the village. This corpse puppet is a variant of the puppet technique. It was created by the corpse refining sect a few hundred years ago. This kind of corpse puppet used living people as materials to refine them into puppets." Moreover, they couldn't die during the refining process. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. After the refining was successful, the corpse puppet could still exert more than half of its strength before it was born. Coupled with the corpse refining sect's spiritual techniques, it could be said to be fearless and powerful. But later, because this method was too vicious, the corpse refining sect was destroyed by several spirit cultivator sects together. I just didn't expect Boi Wanhu, who had outstanding military achievements, to use such vicious methods to refine corpse puppets. After hearing Luo Xiuwen's words, many people gasped in shock. It seemed that these corpse puppets were refined into puppets when they were still alive. That kind of inhuman pain was terrifying just thinking about it. Everyone could not help but snort at Boi Wanhu in their hearts. However, Leng Shiqi felt that something was wrong. Because he cultivated the 7 evil blood art, although he could not exert the characteristics of this technique, he was more sensitive to evil spirits. Logically speaking, this kind of corpse puppet should have strong resentment and evil spirits, but Leng Shiqi did not feel the slightest bit of evil spirits from them. He even vaguely felt an indescribable feeling. Leng Shiqi continued to look back, and found that there was a door at the back of the corpse puppets that led to another place. That place was also a place that Byakugan could not penetrate. He guessed that that might be the place where Boi Wanhu was buried. However, if he wanted to go there, he had to go through these corpse puppets first. There were more than 1,000 corpse puppets, and each of them had excellent weapons and armor. Although he had not fought with them yet, he could tell that they were not easy to deal with. Whether it was the city guards, Qingkou Hall, Tianyin Tower, or Luoyu Manor, they did not have many spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm under them. Most of them were in the pure spirit realm. However, both sides added up to about 300 to 400 people. With such a lineup, even if they could win against the corpse puppets, they would suffer heavy losses. Therefore, neither side wanted to be the vanguard. At this time, there was a burst of noise from the passage behind them. Not long after, a large group of rogue cultivators rushed over. There were about 200 to 300 people. When these rogue cultivators saw the corpse puppets, they knew that they were not to be trifled with. However, there were all kinds of people among the rogue cultivators, and there were a few who were bold enough to poke the corpse puppets. This touch did not matter, but all the corpse puppets trembled slightly at this moment. Thousands of corpse puppets stiffly turned a few times, and then rushed over together. The first few people who touched the corpse puppets were pierced by the corpse puppet spears in the blink of an eye, and they could not be more dead. The sudden awakening of the corpse puppets caught everyone off guard. Among them, 3 corpse puppets attacked Leng Shiqi at the same time. However, Leng Shiqi did not panic. He did not dodge, but unsheathed his spirit saber and took the initiative to meet them. He wanted to see how strong these corpse puppets were. With a clang, Leng Shiqi's scimitar blocked the spears of the 3 corpse puppets. Immediately after, 3 huge forces were transmitted, shaking his hand until it went numb. Each corpse puppet actually has the strength of a peak pure spirit realm cultivator. Leng Shiqi secretly exclaimed. Then something even stranger happened. The 3 corpse puppets actually split up. One of them stalled Leng Shiqi from the front, and the other 2 surrounded him from the side. They actually had a certain level of consciousness. A hint of surprise appeared in Leng Shiqi's eyes, but he could not delay any longer because several corpse puppets were rushing towards him from behind. Then Leng Shiqi used spirit steps and easily dodged the attacks of the 3 corpse puppets. Then, with a shake of the scimitar in his hand, hundreds of saber shadows directly enveloped the 3 corpse puppets. The saber light was like a storm, and in a few breaths, the 3 corpse puppets were cut into pieces. Chapter 163. Leng Shiqi pulled himself out and looked around. The people from the various forces had gathered and were fighting for themselves. There were not many spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm in the city guards and Qingkou Hall, but they had the advantage of numbers. At this moment, they formed a circle and hugged each other. The people outside were injured or did not have enough spirit energy, so the people inside immediately went up and stabilized their position. Although the people in Heavenly Cloud Tower and Luoyu Manor were few, They were all elite disciples in the spirit transformation realm. There were even spirit pulse realm experts. At this moment, Heavenly Cloud Tower's Deacon Elder Eugeniu suddenly slapped out. A majestic palm force surged out and instantly destroyed more than a dozen corpse puppets. Luo Xiaowen of Luo Yu Manor actually used a brush as his weapon. He swung the brush freely among the corpse puppets. Every time he wrote, he would kill a corpse puppet. These corpse puppets were no threat to the two of them at all. Only the rogue cultivators were killed by the corpse puppets. They were not strong enough and could not trust each other to work together. Almost half of them were killed by the corpse puppets. The rogue cultivators standing near the passage were scared out of their wits and hurriedly ran back to the passage to leave. However, before they could run a few steps, they ran into 5 people dressed in black. These 5 people had pale skin and were expressionless. A rogue cultivator who ran out accidentally bumped into one of the black-clothed men, because he didn't look back. The black-clothed man glanced at him and immediately opened his hand, crushing the rogue cultivator's throat with lightning speed. The remaining dozen or so people stopped abruptly and looked at each other in dismay. However, they immediately ignored the dead man and wanted to continue moving forward. Unexpectedly, the faces of the other 4 black-clothed men revealed a wisp of desire, and then they suddenly attacked those rogue cultivators. This attack shocked the rogue cultivators. Only then did they realize that the 5 black-robed men were all in the late stage of the spirit transformation realm. How could these rogue cultivators be their opponents? In the blink of an eye, they were killed in an extremely tragic manner. The 5 black-clothed men walked into the huge tomb with blood on their lapels. Lung Shiqi, who was closest to the passageway, noticed them immediately. Then he sensed a strong murderous aura and the smell of blood from the 5 men. These people must be the devil cultivators from Shangyang City. They're as cruel as the rumors say. No wonder they're so popular. Now, only the people from the Howie sect had yet to appear. What were they waiting for? Aren't you afraid that the Heavenly Cloud Tower and Luo Yu Manor will snatch everything away? Lung Shiqi was dealing with the zombies around him with ease, so he had the time to observe and think about other things. He didn't kill the corpse puppet as quickly as he did in the beginning. Instead, he led the corpse puppet to move left and right to buy time. In other words, he was slacking. The 5 fiendish cultivators seemed to feel that they had not killed enough. After entering, they took the initiative to kill the corpse puppets. Furthermore, their attacks were straightforward and ruthless, and they cooperated very well with each other. In terms of killing the corpse puppets, they were not slower than Eugeniu and Luo Xiaowen. As the number of corpse puppets decreased, the pressure on everyone lessened. Gradually, the spirit cultivators took control of the battle. At this time, Lung Shiqi was no longer slacking. After killing 20 to 30 corpse puppets in a row, all the corpse puppets had been wiped out. At this time, there were only about 100 people left on the Qingkou Hall's side. The city guards were slightly better. The Heavenly Cloud Tower, Luo Yu Manor, and the 5 fiendish cultivators did not suffer much damage. They only consumed more spiritual power. The most miserable were the rogue cultivators. Not long ago, there were hundreds of rogue cultivators, but now there were only a few dozen left. This was the sorrow of rogue cultivators. They did not have good cultivation talent, and did not have good cultivation methods or spiritual skills. However, they also wanted to go further, so they stepped into this tomb to fight for an opportunity. Unfortunately, more than half of them had died before they even saw the tomb. Lung Shiqi could not help but feel a trace of sorrow for them. Rogue cultivators could be said to be the lowest existence among spirit cultivators. Today was the golden age of spirit cultivators. However, any slightly better cultivation methods, spiritual skills, and even cultivation resources were firmly in the hands of various spirit cultivator sects and empires. However, regardless of whether it was spirit cultivator sects or empires, they would only recruit people with decent cultivation talent. If they really could not do it, they would still have connections. However, the vast majority of people in this world had neither talent nor connections. They could only be reduced to rogue cultivators. All day long, they fought for a little bit of resources until they bled and even lost their lives. Of course, this thought only flashed through Lung Shiqi's mind. He immediately approached the crowd of Qingkou Hall, and looked at the door behind the corpse puppets. Everyone gathered in front of the door. The door was 20 feet tall and smooth. The strange thing was that there was not even a door knocker. How do I open this door? At this time, Eugeniu walked forward and stretched out a finger. Immediately, a white finger force shot out from his body and shot towards the door. With a ding sound, Eugeniu's finger hit the front of the door. A translucent light curtain flashed and blocked this finger. There's a restriction, Eugeniu shouted. Luo Xiaowen walked over. His eyes shone with spiritual light as he said, "It should be a pure defensive restriction. It's not very strong. Let's try to break it together." Eugeniu nodded and said, "Okay." Then Luo Xiaowen's brush tapped lightly. The seemingly ordinary brush in his hand was like a sharp sword, giving people a feeling of extreme sharpness. At this moment, he gathered all his spiritual power at the tip of the brush. Then he stabbed out and broke the surface with a single point. Eugeniu slapped out a few times. Every slap was majestic. Every slap hit the same place on the door. That was also the place where Luo Xiaowen stabbed out. Under the combined efforts of the two Spirit Pulse Realm experts, the restriction on the door was quickly broken. Luo Xiaowen and Eugeniu pushed open the door. When everyone saw what was inside, they were all shocked. Leng Shiqi was the same. Just as they opened the stone door, on top of the flat roof, 9 spirit cultivators in white sat in a circle. In the circle was a strange array. In addition, there was an old man with a long beard who was frowning and muttering to himself. Strange, strange, this place is not a place with good feng shui. This is clearly a place of evil. In this way, Bo Yuanho's corpse will probably be eroded by the evil aura. Now that more than 300 years have passed, it is very likely that it will condense into a fiend corpse. He was a spirit aperture realm expert when he was alive. If he condensed into a fiend corpse, it would be a disaster. No, the evil aura here is a bit strange. There doesn't seem to be much negative aura in it. Strange, strange. Why did Bo Yuanho bury himself here? What is he doing? Chapter 164. After the door was opened, before anyone could see what was inside, boundless Yinqi gushed out at a speed visible to the naked eye. If Leng Shiqi felt a little chilly when he entered the mausoleum, then the Yinqi was rushing toward him now. Everyone felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Some of them were unable to withstand the cold, and began to shiver on the spot. There were even some whose bodies were invaded by the baleful aura, triggering the negative emotions in their hearts, and causing them to go crazy on the spot. Of course, they were quickly killed by the others. Leng Shiqi also felt a desire to kill in his mind. Fortunately, his mental strength was not weak. He mobilized his mental strength in time to suppress the impulse. What surprised him was that the 5 cruel demonic cultivators did not show any abnormalities. When the Yinqi gradually dissipated, Leng Shiqi followed the crowd into the tomb. The area here was not small, just a little smaller than the tomb outside. There were circles of pitch-black iron pillars around the tomb, and each of the iron pillars was connected by chains. A heavy coffin was suspended in the middle of the layers of chains. The coffin was pale gold in color, and it was engraved with strange patterns. This should be the main tomb of Boiwanhu. Leng Shiqi opened his Byakugan again, but he still could not see the inside of the coffin. Seeing this coffin, Eugeniu and Luo Xiaowen's eyes could not help but burn. Go Huarong and Zhong Lin's eyes lit up. The others were even more unbearable. The word greed was written all over their faces, and some even drooled. Leng Shiqi, on the other hand, had been observing the iron pillars and chains. This scene gave him a sense of déjà vu. He thought for a moment, and finally remembered that when the fusion blood beast appeared on the 5th floor of the blood-colored tower, the formation that trapped it was similar to the one here. It was just that the formation in this tomb was much larger than that time. He secretly guessed. Could it be that this place is suppressing or sealing something? The Yinqi just now was also very strange. Could it be suppressing Boiwanhu? While Leng Shiqi was thinking, the others couldn't help but talk about it. This must be Marquis Boyuan's coffin. Without a doubt. Such a big coffin. How much gold and silver are there in it? Gold, silver, and treasures are nothing. There must be natural treasures inside. Maybe there are even cultivation methods and spiritual techniques. So what if there is? It has nothing to do with us. In the end, it still belongs to those few people. The people he was referring to were naturally Yu Jinyu, Luo Xiaowen, Go Huarong, and Zhong Lin. At this moment, the four of them were discussing something in low voices for the first time. Yu Jinyu said straightforwardly, "Who will open the coffin?" Luo Xiaowen and Go Huarong fell silent. This tomb was full of traps. There must be some traps on the last coffin. Whoever opened the coffin would be in danger. The corner of Yu Jinyu's mouth twitched as she continued. Why don't we let those people come? As he spoke, he pointed at the remaining dozens of rogue cultivators. The other three immediately understood what she meant and nodded. Then the people from the four forces surrounded the rogue cultivators. Those people felt something was wrong, but it was too late to run now. What are you doing? Yu Jinyu's gaze fell on the person who spoke. It was a middle-aged man who looked a little sloppy. He felt a chill down his spine when he was stared at by Yu Jinyu. Yu Jinyu pointed at him and said, "You go open the coffin." The sloppy middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He immediately shook his head like a rattledrum. What? No, I won't go. Yu Jinyu's gaze turned cold as she sneered. Humph, this is not up to you. If you want to live, go open the coffin. Don't make me say it a third time. The sloppy middle-aged man saw the murderous intent in Yu Jinyu's eyes. If he didn't agree, he would be lying here forever. It was dangerous to open the coffin. If he didn't open the coffin, he would die. This was an easy choice to make. He could only compromise. He mustered up his courage and walked through the chains to get close to the coffin. Everyone's gaze fell on him. Lung Shiqi also stared at this person to see if there was any danger in the process of walking into the coffin. However, to everyone's surprise, the sloppy middle-aged man actually reached the bottom of the coffin. Lung Shiqi thought to himself, aren't these chains some kind of array formation? Maybe I'm thinking too much. The sloppy middle-aged man jumped on top of the coffin. Although the coffin was suspended in the air, it didn't move at all. The sloppy middle-aged man moved to the side and stood on the iron pillar at the corner of the coffin. He rubbed his hands and grabbed the coffin lid with both hands. The sloppy middle-aged man tried to lift the coffin lid with all his strength, but the lid didn't move at all. Then his spirit force surged and there was a faint light on his arms. His face turned red, but he still couldn't open the coffin. Yu Jinyu pointed at three people in a row and said, You and you go over too. The three people he pointed at were all rogue cultivators at the spirit transformation realm, so the three of them could only go over with a calm face. They and the sloppy middle-aged man stood at the four corners. Then they used all of their spirit force to grab the coffin lid. With a GA sound, the coffin lid moved. The four of them were overjoyed. They immediately increased their strength and suddenly lifted the coffin lid. Lung Shiqi's expectation of a scene filled with baleful aura did not happen. He immediately activated his supercilious eyes and looked over. Soon after, his greenish-white eyes were filled with astonishment as he quietly retreated. The four people who opened the coffin subconsciously looked down and saw that the coffin was filled with a dense light black fog. There didn't seem to be any treasures in the fog. They only saw a burly figure wearing heavy armor, holding a heavy sword and a helmet. The helmet only revealed two holes. However, in the next moment, the two holes lit up. Whoosh! Before the others had time to rush to the coffin, for black fog suddenly rushed out of the coffin. It turned into a huge ghost claw and instantly grabbed the four people who opened the coffin and dragged them into the coffin. Immediately, there was a burst of shrill screams. The coffin trembled slightly, and then there was no more sound. Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen looked at each other. This situation was indeed beyond their expectations. The aura from the four fog was stronger than theirs. At this moment, an old man in white rushed in from the door behind them. He shouted in a panic, "Don't open the coffin, don't open the coffin!" As soon as he finished speaking, the black fog in the coffin instantly rushed to the sky. Chapter 165. The old man's voice attracted everyone's attention. The people from Heavenly Cloud Tower and Luoyu Manor immediately recognized him. This person was the array master of the Howie sect, Lu Lekung. He was quite famous and respected in this area. Even in the entire Donglin County, he was quite famous. Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen were puzzled. They thought that the Howie sect was also here to fight for Boiwanhe's burial items, but now it seemed that was not the case. As for Lu Lucheng's words, it made their hearts skip a beat. The strange scene that happened in the coffin was something they had all seen with their own eyes. Now that Lu Lekung, the array master, came running in a panic to say that he could not open the coffin, he should know some unknown secrets. However, there was no time for them to think carefully now because endless black fog suddenly burst out from the coffin and rushed straight up. The black fog instantly filled the entire tomb. Everyone was in the black fog. The black fog was like a living thing that kept drilling into people's bodies. The black fog entered the body and quickly absorbed the flesh and blood in the body. In the blink of an eye, several people were sucked dry by the black fog. At this time, people remembered to use spiritual power to isolate the black fog. Lung Shiqi did the same. He had already started retreating the moment the coffin was opened. Now he had retreated to the vicinity of the door. There was relatively less black fog here. He used spiritual power to cover his body surface to prevent the black fog from entering his body. However, this way, his spiritual power was rapidly consumed at every moment. It was not a long-term solution. At this time, Lung Shiqi looked up and saw that the black fog that had sucked the flesh and blood was feeding back into the coffin. Then there was a soft sound from inside. Then a tall and mighty figure stood up from the coffin. His whole body was covered in heavy armor, only revealing a pair of scarlet eyes. Lung Shiqi seemed to see a touch of helplessness in those eyes, but it was immediately replaced by boundless anger. Hehehe. A rogue cultivator was so scared that his mouth trembled, and he could not speak. Even Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen could not keep calm at this time. They could clearly feel that the person's aura was far beyond theirs. Yu Jinyu said in a low voice, "Could he be Marquis Buyuan?" At this time, Lu Lucheng came over and sighed deeply. In the end, I was still a step too late. That's right, he is Buyuan Ho. Or rather, the corpse of Marquis Buyuan. Fiendish corpse? Even though Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen were well informed, they had never heard of this term. Lu Lucheng quickly explained. Only corpses buried in the land of extreme evil and corroded by the baleful aura for hundreds of years have the slightest chance of turning into fiendish corpses. Don't tell me you didn't notice that this flat-topped hill is a fiend land? Who would build their own tomb in such a place? That Buyuan Ho had buried him here, and laid down the fiend gathering array in order to condense his corpse into a fiend corpse. But doing so would go against the will of the heavens. It would be equivalent to cutting off the future of his bloodline. In other words, he would have no descendants. Lu Lucheng didn't deliberately conceal his words, and everyone present heard it, immediately causing an uproar. And my bloodline? Is it that mysterious? If that's the case, why would Buyuan Ho do this? No wonder I've never heard of the story of Buyuan Ho's descendants. Didn't his entire family get killed? How could there be descendants? But isn't this the same as ending his bloodline? Could it be that Buyuan Ho wanted to refine himself into a fiend corpse that led to the extermination of his entire family? Lung Shiqi didn't have the leisure to care about this. At this moment, he was still staring at Buyuan Ho's fiend corpse with vigilance. He could also feel the terrifying aura of Buyuan Ho's fiend corpse. If a fight broke out, Lung Shiqi would have to give up this opportunity and turn around to escape. But the strange thing was that Buyuan Ho's fiend corpse didn't do anything even though everyone had been whispering for a long time. Instead, the black fog in the tomb slowly faded. Lu Lucheng continued. What I just said is true. Do you still remember why Buyuan Ho's entire family got exterminated? It was because he was found to have collected huge amounts of wealth and privately manufactured military equipment. In fact, what he built was this tomb. At that time, he had already made up his mind to refine himself into a fiend corpse. Even if his entire family got exterminated and his bloodline ended. Yu Jinyu couldn't help but ask. Then what was his purpose in doing this? What did he get out of it? Alas, Lu Lucheng suddenly sighed and said, "At first, I was also very puzzled. At first, I thought the tomb's array was a fiend-gathering array. But I suddenly realized that it wasn't just a fiend-gathering array, there was also a fiend suppression array below. Bu Yuanhou was actually using fiends to suppress fiends. He would rather turn himself into a fiend corpse and end his bloodline, but in fact he wanted to use his fiend corpse to suppress something. The corpse puppets outside were his personal guards who were willing to accompany him in his ambitions. They all volunteered to be refined into corpse puppets, so that they could guard this place forever." After Lu Lucheng said this, the tomb suddenly quieted down. Leng Shiqi also slowly straightened his body. At first, when he first saw Bu Yuanhou's life history, he thought that Bu Yuanhou wasn't a person who fought for power and profit. It was a bit strange that he would conspire against others. At that time, he thought that people would change, so he didn't pay too much attention to it. But when he got more detailed information from Mao Kai, he felt that Bu Yuanhou's effort to build a tomb for himself only resulted in the extermination of his entire family. The gains didn't make up for the losses. Not long ago, when he saw the thousands of corpse puppets outside, Leng Shiqi's impression of Bu Yuanhou was extremely bad. Perhaps the one recorded in history and information wasn't the real Bu Yuanhou. The real Marquis Bu Yuan had created so many undead puppets to protect his mausoleum, so he must have been a vicious and merciless person. But now, after hearing Lu Lucheng's words, he changed his opinion of Bu Yuanhou once again. It turned out that everything Bu Yuanhou had done was to suppress an extremely dangerous ghost. Even if his entire family was exterminated, even if he had to bear a lifetime of infamy, even if his name would go down in history, Leng Shiqi didn't expect that there would be such a righteous person like Bu Yuanhou in this world. Not only him, but everyone else was the same. Many people showed ashamed expressions at this time. If that was really the case, then they were actually coveting Bu Yuanhou's burial items, which made them feel a little ashamed. But more people still had an indifferent attitude. Their eyes were still staring at Bu Yuanhou's coffin, hoping to see what was inside. At this time, Leng Shiqi suddenly thought of a question, which happened to be asked by Luo Xiaowen. What exactly is Bu Yuanhou trying to suppress? Chapter 166. Before Lu Leqing could answer, 5 shadows suddenly appeared under Bu Yuanhou's coffin. They each held an unknown spherical object in their hands, then raised it up and pressed it against the bottom of Bu Yuanhou's coffin. Then, 5 pitch-black streams of ink gushed out of the spherical objects and wrapped around Bu Yuanhou's coffin like 5 tentacles. At the same time, Bu Yuanhou's coffin lit up with a pale golden light, but it was suppressed by the ink streams as soon as it appeared. Bu Yuanhou's corpse began to tremble all over, and the black mist around him quickly faded. He let out an unwilling roar and swung his heavy sword down. However, the 5 streams of ink were so tough that they were not cut in half. This series of changes was unexpected to everyone, especially Lu Lucheng. His expression changed abruptly as he shouted, "Quick, stop them! Otherwise we'll all die!" "Ha ha ha, it's too late!" The 5 demonic cultivators laughed. At this time, the black mist around Bu Yuanhou's body was very little, and his aura was rapidly weakening. At the same time, the whole tomb began to tremble slightly. The trembling was getting more and more intense. Clanking noises could be heard from the chains in the tomb. Soon after, specks of light blossomed from the iron pillars that were connected to the chains. The light extended along the chains, and in the blink of an eye, all the chains were covered in a layer of light. An extremely complicated array appeared on the floor of the tomb. At the center of the array was Bu Yuanhou's coffin. At this time, the ground there was constantly moving up and down, as if something was about to rush out. Leng Shiqi opened his supercilious eye. Although he still could not see what was under the array, he could see that the spiritual power of the array was slowly weakening. In other words, the array would not last long, and the thing that had been suppressed by Bu Yuanhou for more than 300 years would soon break free. Leng Shiqi already had plans to retreat. Unfortunately, just as he was about to leave, Bu Yuanhou's corpse suddenly stabbed his heavy sword into the coffin, transferring all the black mist on his body into it. The iron pillars suddenly spread out, and the layers of chains danced in the air, surrounding the entire tomb. Even the door behind them was shut with a loud bang. Leng Shiqi was standing next to the door. He was one step away from leaving this place, but he was still one step too late. His expression changed slightly, and he immediately executed the hand of the earth with the intention of burrowing through the ground. However, to his surprise, he was actually unable to soften the ground here. Leng Shiqi's heart couldn't help but sink. But on second thought, with such a complicated array formation, it was reasonable for the hand of the earth to fail. However, this was the first time he had encountered such a situation. The hand of the earth could be said to be the most comprehensive spiritual technique he had developed. It could be used to attack, retreat, and escape. Especially the earth burrowing technique, which he loved to use the most. Who would have thought that he would suffer a setback today? Escape? There was no escape now. Leng Shiqi could only let go of this thought. Next, he had to think about how to survive. If we kill them now, we still have a chance to stop it from breaking out of the array. Lu Leqing hurriedly shouted, and then he rushed over without a care for his own safety. He was also a spiritual pulse realm expert. Although he was not young, his body was very agile. He jumped over countless chains and quickly approached the 5 demonic cultivators. Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen knew that things were serious and followed closely behind. Leng Shiqi looked at the 5 demonic cultivators with a cold expression in his eyes. He held 2 scimitars behind his back and rushed over like a jaguar. At this time, almost all the spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm attacked the 5 demonic cultivators. Seeing this, the demonic cultivators laughed even more arrogantly. The aura on their bodies suddenly increased by several times. It turned out that they were all in the spiritual pulse realm. It was just that they had used some method to hide their cultivation. At this time, 90% of the people suddenly stopped. That was a total of 5 spiritual pulse experts. Wouldn't they be courting death if they rushed up again? Thus, only 6 figures continued to rush toward them. They were Lu Leqing and the other 2 spiritual pulse realm experts, Zhonglin, Go Huarong, and Leng Shiqi. Lu Leqing's eyes flashed and he shouted, "Don't be afraid. They are suppressing Boiwanhe's corpse with all their strength. They can't move at all." Hearing this, some of the people who stopped gritted their teeth and continued to rush over, while some remained where they were. In the blink of an eye, Lu Leqing and the other 2 were the first to get close. Lu Leqing held a disc in his hand. At this time, purple spirit inscriptions burst out from the disc and formed a small array in front of him. He pressed the disc on the ground, and the purple spirit inscriptions immediately spread out and surrounded the 5 demonic cultivators. Then Lu Leqing sat cross-legged and said, "I will maintain the little thundercloud array to limit their strength. I'll leave the rest to you." As soon as he finished speaking, a purple lightning bolt as thick as a finger shot out from the little thundercloud array. Because the 5 demonic cultivators had to hold the ball-shaped object with one hand to suppress Boiwanhe's corpse, they could not move. This lightning bolt directly hit one of them, causing him to tremble. Then the second lightning bolt began to brew. At this time, Yu Jinyu clapped her hands, and 2 huge palm shadows that could be seen with the naked eye whizzed out. Luo Xiaowen used his brush as a sword and stabbed out an extremely thin ink-colored sword light. Go Huarong and Zhonglin actually joined hands to attack one of them for the first time. Leng Shiqi suddenly unsheathed his dual blades. The moment they were unsheathed, the 2 blades bloomed with a glaring purple blade light. The blade light was like a crescent moon, cold and sharp as it slashed toward the last demonic cultivator. Just as their attacks were about to hit them, the demonic cultivators suddenly stomped, and a terrifying demonic aura rose from their feet to protect them. Yu Jinyu's palms continuously twisted the demonic aura. But Luo Xiaowen's sword light pierced through the demonic aura. Unfortunately, the demonic cultivator he aimed at was already prepared, and the sword only pierced his arm. Go Huarong and Zhonglin's joint attack was completely blocked by the demonic aura, and it did not even tremble. As for Leng Shiqi, he slashed out 2 crescent light slashes at the same time. The 2 crescent light slashes crisscrossed and landed on the demonic aura, causing it to weaken a lot. After a few breaths, the crescent light slashes forcefully exhausted a large amount of demonic aura. But the blade light itself also consumed a large amount of spiritual power, and finally dissipated into nothingness. But even so, the others were still shocked, especially the 3 spiritual pulse realm cultivators, who knew the power of the demonic aura the best. This unremarkable little old man could actually force the demonic aura to this extent, which was really beyond their expectations. Chapter 167. In terms of pure offensive power, Lung Shiqi's 2 blade rays were only slightly weaker than Yu Jinyu's. It had to be known that Yu Jinyu was at the spirit pulse realm, but Lung Shiqi was only at the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm. Looking at his attire, he didn't look like someone from a spirit cultivation sect. They didn't expect a small rogue cultivator to have such strength. Go Huarong couldn't help but widen his eyes. He was the one who brought Lung Shiqi here. He had always thought that Lung Shiqi was just an ordinary rogue cultivator who obtained the map by luck and never took him seriously. He even wanted to kill Lung Shiqi. Now that he saw how strong Lung Shiqi was, Go Huarong was glad that he didn't make a move against Lung Shiqi. Otherwise he might have been the one to die. Seeing this, Zhonglin secretly said, "So it's him." That day, when Lung Shiqi tried to assassinate Bao Pingyi, he and Chu Xinran had secretly seen a few shocking saber lights from afar, which were exactly the same as what was happening now. Therefore Zhonglin knew that Lung Shiqi was Bao Pingyi's killer. Although Lu Licheng was a little surprised, he was still maintaining the formation and couldn't pay too much attention to it. Immediately after, 2 more purple lightning bolts shot out from the formation. Moreover, it hit the person who was injured just now. The devil cultivator immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, but his face revealed a crazy smile. "Ha ha ha, it's out, it's out, it's out, just wait for your death." "Not good," Lu Licheng suddenly shouted. Just as he finished speaking, all the formations on the ground shattered. The iron pillars and chains flew out in all directions, killing countless people. The scene suddenly became chaotic. Lung Shiqi relied on the spirit steps to nimbly retreat, dodging one iron pillar and chain after another. During this process he saw a huge palm break out of the ground. The 5 devil cultivators all retreated, no longer paying attention to Bo Yuanho's corpse, because at this time, the corpse's aura was abnormally low. The giant hand continued to stretch out, revealing a thick, pitch-black arm. When the arm came into contact with Boiwanha's coffin, it suddenly moved and sent Boiwanha's corpse and the coffin flying with a slap. At this time, some people also noticed that the coffin was empty. There was nothing inside. The gold and silver treasures, heavenly materials and earthly treasures, cultivation methods and spiritual techniques, and high-grade spiritual artifacts that they had imagined were all nowhere to be found. It turned out that this was an empty tomb. However, at this moment, no one was thinking about this. They were only thinking about how to survive. After the huge arm overturned the coffin, the ground began to crack, as if a huge monster was about to break out of the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, countless tiles on the ground exploded as if they were swept away by a hurricane. Then, a pillar of monstrous devil chi gushed out from the ground, and a huge body that was more than 20 feet tall was faintly discernible in the devil chi. The 5 devil cultivators all revealed crazed and fanatical expressions. Black Fiend Demon Corpse. The Black Fiend demonic corpse has finally appeared. Haha, it's ours. However, before they could finish speaking, the thing that they called the Black Fiend Demon Corpse directly slapped them. The demonic corpse's attack revealed a terrifying aura that far exceeded the spirit pulse realm. But strangely, the 5 devil cultivators did not reveal the slightest bit of panic. It was as if all of this was within their expectations. The devil chi around each of them flashed, and the 5 of them strangely dodged the Black Fiend Demon Corpse's attack. Moreover, they spread out in 5 directions to surround it. Then each of them took out a small, light golden needle. With a flick of their fingers, the golden needle ignored the devil chi around the Black Fiend Demon Corpse and shot into its body. The needle was very small, not even as thick as the Black Fiend Demon Corpse's hair. But it was this small golden needle that caused the terrifying Black Fiend Demon Corpse to howl in pain. Then, with the golden needle as the center, countless golden runes quickly spread out. These runes covered more than half of its body like a seal. One of the devil cultivators shouted. Even if it's your 1,000-year-old black fiend demon corpse, you still want to cause trouble in front of us. Obediently kneel down and accept your submission. This series of huge changes made everyone a little dumbfounded. Blood flowed from the corner of Lu Lucheng's mouth. His eyes were filled with shock as he muttered, "Golden thread fiend needle. How could they have such a treasure? Who are they?" One of the devil cultivators said, "You don't deserve to know our identity. You only need to know that you don't disturb us. Wuxia sacrificed a lot to suppress this black fiend demon corpse. Our goal this time is to subdue this demonic corpse and prevent it from causing trouble in the world. This can also be considered a good karma. I think Wuxia spirit can rest in peace now. We can forget about the matter of you attacking us just now." Leng Shiqi could not help but frown. Only now did he finally understand that Wuxia sacrificed himself to suppress this 1,000-year-old black fiend demon corpse. And from the beginning to the end, there were no treasures in this tomb at all. The most precious thing was naturally the black fiend demon corpse. The 5 devil cultivators came for it, but to Leng Shiqi and the others, it was not a treasure, but a ghost that could take their lives. Leng Shiqi also felt a little sullen. In the end, it was like drawing water with a bamboo basket. He did not get anything and wasted so much time. The others were even more unwilling. It was these devil cultivators who played them like monkeys. Now they did not get any benefits and had to watch helplessly as the devil cultivators sealed the demonic corpse. Did they treat them like air? However, at this time the black fiend demon corpse suddenly changed. Under the suppression of the golden thread fiend needle, the black fiend demon corpse could not move. The 5 devil cultivators took out many miscellaneous things and arranged a formation, as if to subdue the demonic corpse. At this moment, a pure black chi suddenly gushed out from the top of the demonic corpse's head. The black chi transformed into the same appearance as the demonic corpse, but it was much smaller, only as tall as a child. After this black chi appeared, the 5 devil cultivators immediately showed a look of horror and shouted in unison, "Demonic spirit? This black fiend demon corpse actually gave birth to a demonic spirit." Ha ha. The demonic spirit laughed crazily, but its voice was abnormally sharp, piercing people's ears and causing incomparable pain. Leng Shiqi hurriedly circulated his spirit energy to resist, and felt a little better. He did not know what a demonic spirit was, but he knew that things had changed again. Sure enough, after the demonic spirit finished laughing, it suddenly turned into a ghostly shadow and pounced into the crowd of city guards. Wherever it passed, everyone's eyes rolled back and they fell to the ground. When it flew over Zhonglin's head, it paused for a moment, then entered Zhonglin's body. Ah! Zhonglin let out a horrifying scream. His body began to twist strangely, his eyes turned pitch black, and his entire body was covered with dense demonic patterns. The aura on his body also rose wildly, and in the blink of an eye, it was comparable to the spiritual pulse realm. Zhonglin looked around and smiled evilly. He raised the large sword beside him, and began to slaughter the city guards like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. Haha, this feeling is still more fascinating. Seeing this, the 5 devil cultivators could no longer remain calm. They were still maintaining the formation to subdue the demonic corpse, so they had no time to deal with the demonic spirit. The demonic spirit was slaughtering the city guards, but suddenly with a poochie sound his arm exploded by itself. A weak body, this is not bad. After Zhonglin said this, his body fell limply. The demonic spirit reappeared and charged directly at a person. That person was Leng Shiqi. Chapter 168. Leng Shiqi cursed his bad luck when he saw the demon spirit rushing toward him. He immediately gathered all his spiritual power, and a faint black aura rose from his feet. He used the ethereal spirit steps and floated away. However, the demon spirit was even faster. Leng Shiqi had just dodged and was about to dodge a second time, but the demon spirit was already in front of him. He did not catch the demon spirit's shadow at all, and was stopped by it. Then, the demon spirit entered Leng Shiqi's body just like before. Lung Shiqi only knew that his vision turned black and he lost consciousness. Ha ha ha. Lung Shiqi laughed softly. Your physical body is not bad. Then dense black demonic patterns appeared all over Lung Shiqi's body. Unlike before, the demonic patterns were still squirming slightly this time. His aura was even stronger and was comparable to the late stage of the spiritual pulse realm. Boom. Immediately, Lung Shiqi was wrapped in a dense demonic aura and crashed into the crowd of Luo Yu Manor disciples like a cannonball. Luo Xiaowen's expression changed greatly. Unfortunately, he cultivated very delicate spiritual techniques and was not good at such a fierce battle. He could only use all his strength to pull the two closest disciples away. However, the remaining disciples of the spiritual transformation realm could not stop Lung Shiqi. He spread his arms and the demonic aura around him formed sabers, halberds, spears, and other weapons and smashed them down. The disciples of Luo Yu Manor had never seen such a battle before, and were already panicking. They could not withstand a single blow from Lung Shiqi. Blood gushed out from the crowd and limbs flew everywhere. Lung Shiqi wiped the blood stains on his hand and put it in his mouth. Delicious. It's your turn next. Lung Shiqi smiled coldly and locked his gaze on the 5 demonic cultivators who were still subduing the black fiend demon corpses. The 5 people's expressions immediately darkened. They were at the critical moment of sealing the demonic corpse, and if they were interrupted, it would mean that all their efforts would be for naught. Once their seal failed, and the devil spirit returned to the black fiend demonic corpse, everyone in the tomb would die. Of course, that included them as well. Stop him! Stop him! One of the demonic cultivators shouted, but the others just dispersed and ignored him. In the beginning, it was these few people who were playing tricks. Otherwise, why would this black fiend demonic corpse be released? Now that there was a problem and they couldn't handle it, they thought of other people? Another devil cultivator frowned and said in a deep voice, Everyone, I am Su Lu. The array left behind by Marquis Buyuan is already an arrow at the end of its flight after more than 300 years. Otherwise, how could the 5 of us release the black fiend devil corpse so easily? Even without us, the black fiend demonic corpses will break out of the formation in a few years. And the purpose of our trip this time is to completely seal the black fiend devil corpse, so as to prevent it from causing an irreversible disaster. Now, we only need you to delay this monster for a moment. Once we seal its body, it will be time to kill the devil spirit. After Su Lu finished speaking, he looked at Luo Xiaowen, Yu Jinyu, and Lu Lekeng. Now only the 3 of them could stop Lung Shiqi. These 3 people were the upper echelons of the spirit cultivator sect. Naturally, they knew that if the lips were gone, the teeth would feel cold. Although they were very unhappy about being used by the devil cultivators, they did not want to die even more. At this time, the 3 of them finally stood up. Lung Shiqi tilted his head. With a shake of his shoulders, the billowing demonic aura behind him condensed into 4 giant pythons. His hands also formed swords and sabers, and he charged forward at a speed as fast as a phantom. His demon-like attack immediately scared the surrounding people away, but at this time, 3 people blocked in front of him. Yu Jinyu raised one of his palms high above his head, and white clouds began to gather on it. Then the clouds formed the shape of a huge palm. He shouted, Sky Cloud Palm. The cloud palm slammed down from mid-air. At the same time, Luo Xiaowen's face darkened as he held his brush and drew out streaks of sword aura. The sword aura formed the word kill. When he drew the last stroke, the sword aura of the word kill shot out. Lu Lekeng was a little embarrassed. He was an array master, and was not good at fighting head-on. At this time, he could only set up 2 defensive restrictions on the spot to stop Lung Shiqi. That's the ultimate skill of the Sky Cloud Pavilion, Sky Cloud Palm. It's said that the owner of the Sky Cloud Pavilion once used this move to kill a level 4 demonic beast. There's also the kill sword technique of Luo Yu Manor. Anyone hit by it will definitely die. That Master Lu can set up restrictions out of thin air. Unbelievable. Is this the true strength of a Spirit Pulse Realm expert? I actually saw it with my own eyes. If I can get out of here alive today, this is enough for me to brag about for a year. When the others saw that the 3 Spirit Pulse Realm experts had taken out their trump cards, they started chatting and seemed to have forgotten that they were also in great danger. However, Lung Shiqi's eyes were full of disdain. Facing Yu Jinyu's sky cloud palm, the 4 devil chi pythons behind him charged forward. Immediately, there was a loud bang in midair, and a black and white ball of light appeared. Huge waves of spirit chi spread wildly, and everyone could not help but take a few steps back. At this time, Luo Xiaowen's kill sword chi also arrived in front of Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi casually swung the saber and sword in his hand. He didn't use any powerful sword techniques, but just swung it down and the kill word sword energy was instantly shattered. Lung Shiqi did not slow down and rushed to the restrictions set up by Lu Leqing. However, Lu Leqing himself had already run as far away as he could. He saw Lung Shiqi easily break Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen's attacks and knew that these 2 restrictions could not stop him at all. Sure enough, the devil chi around Lung Shiqi surged. He directly ignored the 2 restrictions and rushed forward. The devil chi pythons behind him, and the sword in his hands were all aimed at the 5 demon cultivators. Su Lu and the others were already a little regretful at this moment. They thought that this trip would be very smooth, but they did not expect this black fiend demon corpse to give birth to a demon spirit. Now that the demon spirit had found a suitable body and exploded with such terrifying combat power, even if the 5 of them worked together, they might not be a match for the demon spirit, not to mention that they now had to maintain the array that sealed the demon corpse. Just as they did not know what to do, Lung Shiqi suddenly stopped. The demonic patterns on his body were slowly fading, and the demonic aura around him was disappearing by more than half. The 4 giant pythons and the sword had also disappeared into nothingness. Moreover, his upper body began to twist stiffly. Everyone was stunned when they saw this. The 5 demon cultivators' faces lit up. Although they did not know the reason, this did give them more time. They immediately put more effort into the seal. Then half of Lung Shiqi's face faded. He said with half of his mouth strangely, "Scram. Out." Chapter 169. After being possessed by the demon spirit, Lung Shiqi's consciousness came to an extremely dark space, and he turned into a small ball of green light. He had been here before. This was his spiritual space. However, at this time, his spiritual space was shrouded in a layer of devil chi, which was constantly eroding his spiritual space. Lung Shiqi naturally could not sit still and wait for death. However, he was only a small ball of light now. What could he do? At this time, Lung Shiqi knew that he could not panic. He quickly calmed down and looked for a solution. Slowly, he remembered that when the demon spirit came out of the black fiend demonic corpse, it was also a ball of black light, but it later turned into a human form. Can I do this too? Lung Shiqi thought of this and tried it. Then his green ball of light began to squirm irregularly and gradually stretched out. It seems to work. Gradually, Lung Shiqi seemed to have found the trick to controlling his body. Soon, it formed a green humanoid the size of a doll. However, this humanoid figure looked a little strange. Its 4 limbs were of different lengths, and the facial features on its face were blurry. Is this all I can do? Let's try it. Immediately, the green humanoid clenched its fists and slammed them into the layer of black demonic aura. Although the 2 fists were small, the force of the fists was extremely fierce. It was like a tiger pouncing on its prey and smashing into the demonic aura. The combined force of the fists directly blasted a big hole in the layer of demonic aura. Because of this, he once again felt his own body and gained some control over it. This was the scene that everyone saw outside. At this time, the right half of Lung Shiqi's face was still covered with demonic patterns. This half of his face showed a hint of surprise, then it became gloomy and said, "And then, the demonic aura in Lung Shiqi's right eye soared. The demonic patterns on his body emerged again, and the demonic aura around him began to gather. At this time, Lu Leqing saw this and immediately shouted, "They are fighting for control of the body. Quickly attack." Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen heard this and were about to attack. However, Lung Shiqi said again, "Ignorant. Come and kill him." After you kill him, I'll just change into another body. However, Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen still rushed over. They were not stupid. Just now, when the demon spirit possessed Zhong Lin, his body exploded in an instant. Now when it possessed Leng Shiqi, it could last for so long. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Leng Shiqi's body was extraordinary. Killing Leng Shiqi would greatly weaken Mo Ling's strength. As for Leng Shiqi's life and death, they didn't care at all. Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen attacked from the left and right, one palm and one sword respectively. Leng Shiqi also felt an extreme sense of crisis. He immediately used the little bit of control he had over his body to activate the Beast Essence battle pattern on his back. Boom! Leng Shiqi's body suddenly swelled, bursting out of his robe, revealing his muscular upper body. At this moment, the picture of the spiritual ruin Beast King lit up on his back. There were even traces of golden light flowing within the picture. Once the Beast Essence battle pattern appeared, it immediately forced the demonic patterns on his back to retreat. Leng Shiqi gained more control over his body. Seeing that it was effective, he immediately activated another Beast Essence battle pattern in front of him. Layers of silver-white light lit up at his chest, and the light quickly covered his entire body. When the silver light dissipated, Leng Shiqi's body had an extra set of scales. Until now, only the right half of Leng Shiqi's face still had demonic patterns, which made him feel slightly more at ease. The other half of the face smiled strangely and said, "Interesting." Leng Shiqi immediately felt that something was wrong. Sure enough, the demonic patterns reappeared on his silver-white scales, but they were much sparser than before. At the same time, Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiaowen's attacks were about to reach him. "Brat, if you don't want to die, give me control." The demon spirit's voice suddenly appeared in Leng Shiqi's mind. "Impossible. Humph, if you die, I'll just change my body. But you'll really die. At most, we'll split it in half. Otherwise, even if I die, I won't give you control. Other than me, no one here can withstand your spiritual body. Without the support of your body, you can't use your full strength. If this continues, you'll be killed by the 5 demonic cultivators sooner or later. Half it is." Ah! Leng Shiqi let out a cry that sounded like a human, a demon, and a beast. Demonic chi surged around him, and he was covered in a layer of thin silver armor. The thin silver armor was covered with strange demonic patterns. In addition, a demonic beast pattern lit up on his back. What was even stranger was that his face was clearly split into 2 halves. The right half of his face was gloomy and violent, and his eyes were filled with pure demonic chi. The left half of his face was calm and shrewd. Blue veins popped out at the corners of his eyes, but his pupils had turned greenish-white. He stood still, and his black hair was blown wildly by the invisible force. He was like a demon. In the face of Luo Xiaowen and Yu Jinyu's attacks, he stood still. Then, he swung his right arm, and the demonic aura behind him condensed into several huge halberds. The halberds carried a ferocious demonic aura, and destroyed Luo Xiaowen's sword aura like a rubber ball. They tore through his protective spirit energy and sent him flying. Luo Xiaowen spat out a few mouthfuls of blood in midair, and fell heavily to the ground. He slid back a few feet before stopping. Luo Xiaowen clutched his chest and said in shock, "He's actually much stronger than before." Almost at the same time, Leng Shiqi's left hand formed a palm and shot out 6 palm shadows. Every palm image was burning with raging devil flames. Wave after wave of blazing fire spread out, causing the surrounding spirit cultivator to retreat. After the 6 palm shadows were shot out, they merged into a demonic palm that was 5 feet in size. The demonic palm clashed with Yu Jinyu's sky cloud palm. When the 2 palms collided, there was a boom. The 2 palms collided and exploded in midair. However, the sky cloud palm was completely suppressed by the demonic palm, and shattered after 2 breaths. The demonic palm did not slow down, and continued to rush towards Yu Jinyu with the demonic flames. Yu Jinyu was shocked. Just as the demonic palm was about to reach him, a light purple lightning net suddenly appeared in front of him. The demonic palm was stopped by the lightning net, and Yu Jinyu immediately reacted and dodged. The moment he dodged, the demonic palm also broke through the lightning net, and hit the tomb wall behind him. It actually left a deep palm print on the wall. Wherever the demonic palm passed, whether it was the floor or the iron pillars and chains, they all melted. This palm was actually so powerful. Eugenie's face had already turned pale. If this palm landed on him, he would definitely die. Thus, he also looked at Lu Leqing gratefully. If it were not for Lu Leqing's lightning net that bought him some time, he would have melted like those chains. The demon spirit borrowed his body. Similarly, Leng Shiqi could also borrow the demon spirit's demonic aura. Just now, he used the 6-yang poisonous fire palm and added a majestic demonic aura. At the same time, he used the Byakugan to see through the spiritual power distribution of the sky cloud palm and found the flaw in Eugenie's palm. That was why he could easily defeat Eugenie. Kid, your palm is a bit tricky. Help me get back my physical body. I can accept you as my disciple and teach you the supreme demonic technique. Chapter 170. Inside the tomb, Leng Shiqi's demonic aura was monstrous. 2 spiritual pulse experts couldn't even take a single blow from him, which made the others feel despair. At this time, Leng Shiqi's demonic eye on the right stared fiercely at Su Lu and the other demonic cultivators, while his left eye glanced at the door of the tomb. Boy, you have some skills. Let's join hands and kill those 5 people. Help me get my body back, and I'll teach you the supreme demonic technique. Mo Ling's voice appeared in Leng Shiqi's mind. No, I think it's best to leave now. Leave? How can I give up on my body that has been cultivating for thousands of years? You think I can't see that your body has been suppressed for hundreds of years and has long been ruined? Moreover, those 5 demonic cultivators are about to be sealed. It's too late. Leng Shiqi naturally saw the situation inside the Black Fiend demon's corpse through his white eye. The demonic corpse looked unparalleled on the surface, but the inside of its body had long deteriorated. Presumptuous. I'm only talking to you like this because I'm giving you face. Do you know who I am? Join hands with me to get my body back, or I'll immediately devour your soul. Is that so? But you have to know that only my current state can allow you to exert the greatest power of your spirit body. If I die, you won't be able to kill the demonic cultivators. By the time they subdue your main body, your death date will also be here. Moreover, will you let me go after I help you get your body back? Are you too naive, or am I too naive? Mo Ling found that Leng Shiqi was unexpectedly stubborn, but what he said was all true. Now, Mo Ling still had to rely on Leng Shiqi's double beast origin battle patterns to exert the greatest power of his body. Just as the two of them were arguing, a tall figure stood up. It was Bo Yuanho's corpse. At the beginning, Bo Yuanho's corpse was sealed by the 5 demonic cultivators. Later, the Black Fiend demon corpse broke out of the formation and directly sent it flying to a corner of the tomb. After that, everyone's attention was placed on the Black Fiend demon corpse and actually forgot about it. At this time, the fiend corpse stood up. His scarlet eyes stared at the Black Fiend demon corpse that was about to be sealed. Then, he waved the heavy sword in his hand and walked over with heavy steps. With every step he took, his speed increased by a bit. When everyone noticed him, he was already charging over like a fierce bull. When Su Lu saw this, he immediately panicked. They were only a hair away from completely sealing the Black Fiend demonic corpse. Who would have thought that another big problem would come at this time? That's impossible. Didn't the fiendish corpse turn into an ordinary corpse after its baleful aura was sucked dry? Just a little bit more, damn it. Who can stop him? However, at this time, Luo Xiuwen was injured. Eugenie and Lu Leqing had consumed a lot of their spiritual power, and the remaining pure spirit realm and spirit transformation realm cultivators could not help. The only one who could stop the corpses was the Leng Shiqi. Unfortunately, they were still struggling with their thoughts. At this moment, Mo Ling also saw the fiend corpse rushing over, and knew what it wanted to do. He immediately pulled the right half of the Leng Shiqi and rushed forward. Mo Ling wanted to destroy the fiendish cultivator's seal, and also stop the fiend corpse's attack. But this was too difficult. If he went to stop the fiend corpse, then his original body would be sealed. If he went to kill the fiendish cultivators, then his original body would have to face the attacks of Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse. Mo Ling knew the situation of his original body best. If he allowed the fiend corpse to attack, he was afraid that he would really be killed. Kid, let's work together again. I'll kill the fiendish cultivators, you go stop Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse. However, the Lung Shiqi's method was to do his best to stop Mo Ling. In the spiritual space, the Lung Shiqi was also constantly destroying the fiendish qi in order to gain more control of his body. In the outside world, he controlled the left half of his body to hold Mo Ling back. Bastard, you're courting death. Mo Ling suddenly appeared in the spiritual space. He waved his arms, and the fiendish qi behind him formed 9 giant pythons and rushed over. At the same time in the outside world, Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse was getting faster and faster. In the blink of an eye, it was not far from the fiend corpse. Then he raised his heavy sword, which emitted waves of fiendish qi that made people shudder. The heavy sword fell with the force of 1,000 caddies, instantly destroying the fiendish cultivators' formation, and sending them flying back while vomiting blood. In the next moment, the heavy sword slashed across the fiendish black corpse's neck, and its head fell to the ground. Not only that, but the black light on the heavy sword continued to absorb the fiendish black corpse's fiendish black corpse. In the blink of an eye, the fiendish black corpse collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and finally turned into a large pile of minced meat. After doing all this, Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse's tall body fell down with a loud bang, and the heavy sword fell beside him with a clang. Even if Bo Yuanho only had a trace of will left, he still wanted to kill the fiend corpse. At this moment, Su Lu and the other fiendish cultivators' eyes were so wide that they were about to pop out of their sockets. They had worked so hard and wasted so many treasures, but in the end, they had failed at the most critical moment. What made their efforts go to waste was not the fiend spirit, who was the greatest threat, but the fiend corpse of Bo Yuanho, who they had never taken seriously. They were full of anger. But now that Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse was completely dead, they had nowhere to vent their endless anger. At the same time, in Lung Shiqi's spiritual space, the fiend spirit controlled the 9 ferocious pythons to rush toward Lung Shiqi's spiritual body. Lung Shiqi was startled by the fiend spirit might that soared to the sky. He hurriedly used ghost parade and spirit steps in an attempt to dodge. But the fiend spirit laughed wildly and said, "Still want to dodge? Die." However, just as the 8 pythons were about to completely devour Lung Shiqi's spiritual body, the demon spirit trembled all over. He couldn't even maintain his human form. The pythons condensed from demonic aura naturally dissipated into nothingness. Lung Shiqi's heart moved. He knew that the fiend spirit's main body had been killed. After all, the fiend spirit was only born from the fiend corpse's remnant after many years of accumulation. He originally relied on the main body to exist, which was why he had to take back his physical body. Now that his main body was killed, his spiritual body was naturally seriously injured, and his strength sharply decreased. The reason why Lung Shiqi wanted to stop the fiend spirit was because of this. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lung Shiqi hurriedly controlled his body to take out something that should not exist in this world from the system space. A small glass bottle. The glass bottle contained a light blue liquid. This was the prize that Lung Shiqi won from the 20 consecutive draws on Blood Mist Island, the spirit mixture. Lung Shiqi raised his head and drank it. Then in the spiritual space, his spiritual body shone with a green light. Not only did it grow several times, but it also formed the same appearance as himself. Even a strand of hair was very fine. He clenched his hands and condensed 2 long swords, staring at the fiend spirit with killing intent. Chapter 171. In the spiritual space, Lung Shiqi slashed out 2 cyan blade auras that were like crescent moons. The blade auras flew out with boundless sharpness. The demon spirit's entire body was still trembling. It was unable to resist at all, and allowed the 2 cyan blade auras to slash its body. The 2 cyan blade auras instantly cut the demon spirit into 3 pieces. The demon spirit's body became even smaller, and could no longer maintain its human form. All that was left was its head. In the outside world, The demonic patterns on Lung Shiqi's body were fading. At the same time, his aura suddenly dropped. It dropped again and again until it was equivalent to the early stage of the spirit pulse realm. This huge change in aura immediately attracted the attention of the spirit pulse realm cultivators, especially the 5 demonic cultivators. Sulu's face was ferocious as he shouted, "The demon corpse has been slashed and the demon spirit has also been heavily injured. Kill this person and hook out the demon spirit. I will torture it day and night, so that it will never be reincarnated." Voila! The 5 demonic cultivators took out a strange weapon at the same time. The weapon seemed to connect the 2 curved blades together. Then, a faint black demonic aura emitted from the weapon. The 5 of them charged towards Lung Shiqi with killing intent in their eyes. At this time, Lung Shiqi had regained control of most of his body. Seeing 5 spirit pulse realm experts surround him, he was shocked. A part of his mind sank into the spiritual space and said, "Demon spirit, do you want to live? If you have something to say, say it." At this moment, the demon soul spoke, but its voice was obviously weak. "Lend me all your strength and charge out. You just injured this sovereign, and you want this sovereign to help you? Wishful thinking." The demon spirit roared. "But if I die, you will definitely fall into their hands. Didn't you hear them just now? They want to lock you up and torture you, so that you will never be reincarnated. Helping me escape is also helping yourself. After we get out, we will settle our grudges with our own abilities. It's better than dying in the hands of others." Okay. Mo Ling hesitated for a moment before finally agreeing. Then he completely gave up control of Lung Shiqi's body. Not only did Lung Shiqi regain control of his body, but he also felt a huge amount of devil chi surging out of his body. However, at this moment, the 5 fiendish cultivators had already arrived. Lung Shiqi tapped his feet lightly, and 2 streams of black mist rose up to his thighs, increasing his speed by 80%. Then he used floating spirit steps and dodged the attacks of the 2 like a ghost. Lung Shiqi's footsteps paused as he threw out a punch and a palm respectively. That punch was followed by the sound of a tiger's roar. Immediately after, a shadow of a ferocious tiger leaped out and crashed into a devil cultivator, sending him flying. Furthermore, when that person wasn't paying attention, a powerful hidden energy surged into his body, causing him to spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. The other palm was the 6-yang poisonous fire palm. The devil cultivator had seen the power of this palm, and did not dare to fight it head-on. Instead, he chose to retreat. Lung Shiqi dodged the attacks of the 2 and forced the other 2 to retreat, but there was still one devil cultivator, who had not made a move yet. That was Sulu. He had been watching Lung Shiqi's movements, looking for a flaw. At this moment, Sulu's strange weapon burst out with an astonishing cold light and slashed horizontally. Lung Shiqi had thrown out a punch and a palm in succession. At this time, he was in a short period of weakness. This time he could not avoid it. With a thought, a layer of pure devil chi was attached to his body. It was also at this moment that Sulu's weapon arrived. With a buzzing sound, the weapon hit the devil chi and caused it to tremble. In less than a blink of an eye, it was broken. The weapon continued forward and cut a deep wound on Lung Shiqi's silver scale armor. With a strong force, Lung Shiqi could not help but fly backward and crash into the crowd of Heavenly Cloud Tower. The people of Heavenly Cloud Tower immediately scattered, while Eugenu's eyes flashed with killing intent. Just now he had been defeated by Mo Ling. Although he was not injured, he had lost face. Now that Mo Ling's strength had been greatly reduced, he might as well hit him when he was down. After Lung Shiqi fell to the ground, he stood up directly regardless of his injuries. His eyes paused on someone in Heavenly Cloud Tower for a moment, and then he flashed out. Just as Eugeniu was about to make a move, a disciple next to him whispered, "Elder Yu, we have been fooled by the 5 devil cultivators for a long time. Why don't we let them and Mo Ling kill each other now? No matter who wins, the winner will definitely be seriously injured. At that time, we will come out to eliminate the devil cultivators. The name of Heavenly Cloud Tower will definitely spread throughout Donglin County." The person who spoke was Wuxia, who had been controlled by Lung Shiqi. Hearing Wuxia's words, Eugeniu nodded secretly and said, "It's a very good idea. You are very smart. I don't deserve it. Yu Jinyu stopped making a move and prepared to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Seeing this, Leng Shiqi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Dealing with the 5 devil cultivators was already his limit. If Yu Jinyu joined in, he was afraid that he would die here. Su Lu and others continued to attack. Yu Jinyu retreated far away with the people of Heavenly Cloud Tower. Leng Shiqi turned into a phantom and rushed out. On the ground where he had just fallen, there was a small inconspicuous pill. Yoshiya's eyes were filled with eagerness when he saw the pill. That was the last antidote of the ant-devouring poison pill. The battle between Leng Shiqi and the 5 devil cultivators was still going on. Although it was called a battle, it was more like Leng Shiqi had been dodging. If he couldn't dodge, he would fight head-on. It didn't take long for his body to be covered with wounds. In the process, many people were killed by mistake. What everyone didn't notice was that Leng Shiqi's position was slowly approaching the door. However, he didn't deliberately get close. Instead, he circled around every time he got closer. He was afraid that others would find out his intention. At this time, Leng Shiqi visually estimated the distance to the door and said secretly, "It's about time." Facing the 5 demonic cultivators, a spiritual sword suddenly appeared in his hand. Soon after, a graceful and agile feeling surged from his body. His figure flickered, and in an instant, more than 20 phantoms appeared. Many phantoms stabbed out with their swords in different postures, and each sword was accompanied by an amazing sword chi. In an instant, the sword chi overflowed, and the sword chi was everywhere. The faces of the 5 devil cultivators changed slightly. They couldn't tell if these phantoms were real or fake, so they could only defend. However, one of the phantoms didn't attack them. Instead, it turned around and rushed to the door. Su Lu was the first to notice Leng Shiqi's intention. He immediately used his devil chi to force back the phantoms around him, and with a wave of his weapon, he shattered several sword chi and chased after him. Leng Shiqi took out 3 flying daggers from his sleeves. The 3 flying daggers were stained with pure demonic aura and shot out in a triangular formation. After the flying daggers were shot out, the daggers absorbed the demonic aura on them and even absorbed the surrounding light. The entire surrounding area seemed to have become dimmer. This was a level 3 spiritual skill, devouring light-throwing knives. Su Lu's figure suddenly stopped. The strange weapon in his hand spun, and with 3 clangs, the 3 throwing knives were knocked to the ground. However, Su Lu was also knocked back. His feet slid on the ground, leaving 2 deep grooves. After Leng Shiqi shot out the throwing knives, he took out his 3-part spear. His aura was unparalleled. He drew a huge black cross of light and brazenly blasted it at the door. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.